Clough is on some family business. So I've asked Colleen Granger. She will offer our invocation, and we'll have a pledge by Nick Whitney. What troop are you, Nick? Rick. Sorry, Rick. I won't forget it again. What troop are you, Nick? 488. That's Nick. That's right.
Our beloved Father in heaven, we're grateful for those that are here this evening, and that we might pay close attention to their words and their wisdom, and that we might be able to understand and deal with the issues before us. Father, we're grateful for the opportunity to participate in government in this city and in this council. We're grateful for the community that's so supportive and caring. We ask, Father, for inspiration, blessings on families, on those who are troubled or in need. We're grateful for the moisture that we're receiving and ask that we might be able to be careful and mindful of the community as that moisture begins to melt. Be with Father this evening. We say in the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Rick, come right up there and
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in the liberty and justice for all.
thank you, Councilman Granger, and thank you, Rick, sorry about that. Okay, we'll move on to item 1, approval of the agenda.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Rick, aye.
Granger, aye.
Ward, aye.
Item 2, announcements. Anything to announce at this point? Item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Anything to declare at this time from the council? Item 4, consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. Item A, approval of the minutes. Consideration to approve the minutes from the city council meetings of 1/22/19, 1/23/19. Board audit. Consideration to approve the board audit for January 2019. And a final plat. Consideration to approve the final plat for Chaparral Ridge Phase 6, located approximately Desperado Drive and Wild Horse Ridge. Applicant Kent Rasmussen.
A question on the board audit. Is this just an acknowledgement of receipt on that? Or I was thinking, help me out with what we're voting on for that board audit. That have already occurred. Yeah. But it's, so I'm just thinking about the presentation we received yesterday. I was thinking we would, oh, my microphone off. Let's see. Yeah, that's fine. But the presentation we received yesterday, I was thinking we'd have some more deliberation upon that. I didn't expect it in the.
That's not it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Thank you.
yeah. You're gonna get plenty. Come on, that.
Oh,
was-
okay. Thank you. So then, final plat. I just want to look at the reference that document there because some of that is already built out. Is that what was shown in our packets there? Is that the entire subdivision, or was there a portion of that was part of another subdivision? I need to pull that document back up.
That's just phase 6 of the Chaparral Ridge overall plan.
Okay.
If there's, I'm trying to remember how many. I think this will be the 4th of 6. I think 4 and 5 are yet to come. They don't have to go in order. So the preliminary plat had it broken up into different sections. So that's just that particular phase from the approved preliminary plat from years ago.
And that was years ago, right? That was, from the documents, that was,
Yeah, this is Rogers subdivision, you know, that he's in. It's right above. Never build above him and behind him.
Never be a house up there.
So
that's helpful, thank you.
It's an inside joke.
if it'll help you, I'll just quickly. Where you see Camino Real, sorry, High Noon Circle, Outlaw Gulch. That's all part of this Chaparral Ridge. And then you can see Desperado. So it's this particular area right here by Wild Horse Ridge, and then up to Desperado, that little L-shape area is what's the final plat for tonight. And then this particular area, you can see where it says Lost Ridge Drive that'll bend around. That's other phases that have yet to come in.
Who names these streets?
Well, the problem is it's getting harder and harder to find names that go well with our surroundings. So now we're, you know, the best fruit's all gone.
Yeah.
So now we're picking the ones that just.
No,
Well,
but
we're
it-
gonna
it's
start going
getting-
A Street, B Street,
Yeah.
C Street.
I think
You know-
Brigham had it right. Just call them all numbers
Yeah.
and easy to find.
I love the
Outlaw,
numbers.
Lost
Oh,
Street.
yeah.
Wild Horse. I
Well,
feel like
again, if you
I'm
know who lives in
Far
the
West.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
All right.
You saying, is this where you hang out?
No,
No, I kind of, when you.
I stay away
I
from
bet
this
you
area.
tipped us off with that.
I've been caught in there a few times, but it's been a scarred area for the most part. So thank goodness this developer's picked it up, and he actually bought out the rest of them. He'll just be working his way to the north. So
Are you ready?
Yes, thank you.
With that, move approval of the consent agenda, including the minutes, the board audit, and the final plat for Chaparral Ridge Phase 6.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second.
Ward, aye.
Granger, aye.
Correct, guy.
Thank you. Those are all approved. Item 5, Youth Council update. Carmen, who do you have coming up?
Alex, introduce yourself.
I'm Alex Klein. I'm the city manager on the youth council. And I just want to tell you a little bit about our legislature trip. So we went up on a Sunday night and we took a night tour of the Capitol building with Senator Ipson, Senator Vickers, and Representative Segmuller. And during the night tour, in the rotunda, we have some choir members on youth council. So we had some of them and Representative Segmuller sing the national anthem in there. It was pretty cool.
How were the acoustics?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That's great.
And so then the next morning, we went to an appropriation meeting on education at 7 in the morning. And after that meeting, we were introduced on the House floor and the Senate floor. And our mayor, Carson Jackson, who's not with us today, he got the opportunity to go up with Representative Segmuller and see a little bit about what he does on the House floor. And in the Senate, we were able to watch a bill be passed on the World War II Navajo Code Talkers. And they set aside August 15th to now honor them. After we went to the Senate and watch that bill get passed. We had the opportunity to meet with Governor Herbert and the Lieutenant Governor Cox. And we presented the Lieutenant Governor with a suitcase full of stuff because he has to drive up and back every morning. So we gave him a suitcase full of stuff to help
What kind
him.
of stuff was in that?
Yeah, it was just stuff to help him with the ride
Great.
there
That's
and
good.
back.
Cute.
And it was just letting him know that our theme this year is the ride. And when the governor talked to us, he spent a while with us and he told us that it's important for our generation to register and vote because he said that we can stop socialism from taking over the United States. He said that if we become if we start having socialism in the United States, it will take out the middle class, and that's what keeps the economy growing. And also, he said that if we started to use socialism, then we wouldn't have a chance to become what we want to become. And then after we met with the governor, Senator Ipsen arranged lunch for us, and we met with a bill writer, a fiscal analyst, and a lobbyist. And we just got to see a little bit about how a bill becomes a law. And as a youth council, we want to thank you for the opportunity. This was an amazing experience for all of us. And lastly, we want to announce that the 2019 to 2020 youth council applications are online. And we have 10 seniors graduating this year, so there'll be 10 openings for new council members. And our councilman, Jacob Sorensen, has something to present you with.
Thank you very much.
Right. So, as Alex just said, we're very grateful to you for allowing us to have this experience. And so, while we were there, they gave us pins with the American flag and also a beehive, the state symbol on the flag. So we would just like to present our mayor.
Stall. You twist it.
Carmen. Come on, Carmen.
Sorry, Sherry.
Councilwoman Ward, would you mind standing next to Councilwoman Ward?
Councilwoman Ward.
Councilperson Ward?
Councilwoman Ward.
Yeah, his daughter.
Network. That's his daughter. That's the thing. No, you're.
That's cute.
I like that one. Wow. Great. One more. Good. Thanks, guys. Yeah, two on this side. Great.
We've also got some cookies for you. So we'll just
Just for me?
Yeah. Youth council.
We probably better share them, huh?
one more really brief,
Yes.
very brief. Happy Valentine's tomorrow.
Thanks,
But
Byron. You too.
again, thank you. I was talking to Senator Ibsen on Saturday morning, and he just praised these youth. He says he's never seen such a wonderful mannered group of young men and women. And he says was hearing it all through the Capitol, even from the governor's office.
Great.
So that really touched our hearts because I think they really represented Washington very, very well.
Thank you.
so
We're sure
proud
that
of
you
them.
did.
But
Absolutely.
one really cool thing is that our parliamentarian has been asked to give the opening prayer the last day of the legislature.
Wow.
So me and her and her mother is going to go up.
Oh, that'd
She's
be
going to
great.
do that. So that's quite an honor. And
Is
that's
that-
Tierra.
Is that in March?
That's March 6th and the 7th.
7th.
The last day of the legislature. So we think that's quite an honor.
Great.
So anyway, thank you again for letting us even be.
No,
And you know we're not
it's
socialists.
our fault. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to throw that out there. Okay. So can we be excused?
Absolutely.
Well,
Thanks,
before you
Carmen.
go, I just appreciate the update from you had a much better tour of the Capitol than we did last year, and I've seen the agenda for our city council going up there, and you had a better tour this year than we're gonna have. on our
Yeah.
agenda. Oh yeah, that's probably true. They're not gonna let me see. I'm pretty sure that guy did it.
Yeah, it's not the one that has nearly the connections you have. I will
Yes,
tell you
yes.
that.
Councilman Drake knows we send up the agenda and we ask them to fill everything.
Right on.
You do a great job.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
jealous.
Carmen
Very
does a
nice.
great job with our youth council, and it's great to see young men and women that can stand up and present the way you present it. That's what it's about. really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great young men and young women that represent us well. And we're
Thank you.
And you are excused. Okay, move on to item 6, our public hearings. Let's give them a hand. Now we'll move on to our public hearings. Item A, public hearing and consideration to approve an additional height waiver for a structure located at 55 North 300 West, applicant Robbie Staley, Cottontown Village.
I really don't have much on. I was just going to let Robbie come up. It's his application and request for this. So is Robbie here tonight? So anyway, Mr. Staley is seeking for our first official waiver of the height according to the new ordinance. So I'll just turn the microphone over to him and he can enter his case to you. So.
Can you, as part of this, thank you. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Robbie Staley. I'm the applicant. Don't know really where to start on this. Several years ago, we purchased a old grain silo from the Gentry Farm located, well, it was in the Little Valley area. And we brought some ideas to the council several years ago about maybe doing a sign out of it, some different things, putting it out there on the corner of our property, which is located at 300 West Telegraph. With some direction, we thought it'd be better to maybe put it more central into the project. So just wanting to think of an idea to use, we were just going to kind of do a monument out of it. The original height was 75 feet tall. And so we acquired a building permit to go 36 feet tall at the time, and it was approved. And we started the construction of it. The construction of the building at the time didn't have any of this additional structure on it. So during that process, we had an idea of what to turn it into, and we have a themed inn, I guess, a little bed and breakfast at our location now called the Honeymoon Trail Inn, and we thought it'd be quite unique to do a second type of inn there. And so the idea of the silo turning into a place for guests to come and stay, themed room, kind of, I guess, came into place. And so at that time, met with staff, talked about maybe going higher than the original 36 feet, brought them some elevations in. And at the time, I guess the ordinance was being rewritten from planning to the council. So there's a time there we just kind of waited to get that finished and then be able to present it to you guys tonight. So these are the elevations we came up with the architect. We have the idea of having 2 separate rooms, one on the main floor and then a suite that's actually 2 stories inside. The second and third level would be almost like a loft, I guess. Again, these are kind of conceptual. The total height that we are looking to go is 46 feet. To the top of that there's a little guardrail, I guess, that was on the original silo. That's that little round thing on the top. So right now we've got the structure up to 35 feet, which if you look at those little dots on the silo part, the cylinder part, we would need to put one more of those rings up plus the roof to give you a perspective of what we're asking as far as height-wise, how much more to go.
So sorry, can you describe that again? One more what?
Maybe I'll point to it. So this height now is about 34. Okay. I mean, it's already built. We've already acquired a permit for it. We're just going to go to 35 feet and then put a roof on it. So we're asking to go one more, which is approximately 5 feet plus the roof, which is approximately 5 feet tall.
And the part we're seeing on top is a guardrail. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, on the old silos, they'd have the chute that would come up over the side. There's the ladder that would be implemented in that, and then at the top, it's just it's a stainless guardrail because they would climb up to the top, and it was just kind of a
So I wasn't aware they had any safety equipment on old farm buildings.
Well, maybe it was how they got away with it, I guess.
There you go.
So we're really excited about this project. Just to give you an idea, the diameter of the silo is only about 18 feet. It's not real big. It's not obtrusive. I know that, from the picture it might seem a little bigger than it is. And those pop outs, the front with the windows and the doors, they're approximately 10 feet out and 15 feet wide. So the additional structure is probably going to be just about over 35 feet, but the silo with the roof will be standing above. So I don't know, in a nutshell, that's kind of history of why we're to this point.
And you're
But
saying
I'd love to-
it's in the location where it's going to be. I mean, I've been out to your property.
Yeah, it's
So-
already in the location. I brought a site plan. I don't know if that helps. And I don't even know. And this is an old aerial, so it doesn't have has a curbing and everything around it right now, so it's kind of in place. So that's kind of hand drawn. Sorry, I just grabbed this. It was an older aerial, but it doesn't have.
So is that in the middle of the parking lot there?
Pretty much in the middle. So you drive in. What we've done is some curbing around the whole thing, and so you'll be able to kind of drive around the building with our parking and the driveways. Oh, there it is. So you can kind of see a little later dated picture, I guess. So.
Are you going to keep the color?
I don't think so, but possibly. So if we do keep the blue, some of the thoughts were, that white's kind of a big thing right now. We'd probably do some white brick with some shiplap on the additional part with the white roof, and maybe keep the blue, or maybe just go all white. I don't know at this point. So.
I like the blue.
I know
pretty
it's kind of,
striking,
there's
yeah.
so many people that
Yeah.
it's just preference, but I think, yeah.
It's all right.
You could call it the, isn't there like 8 wonders of the world? This could be the first wonder
Wonder
of
of-
Washington City.
Of Cottontown. Yeah, Washington, for sure. Yeah. But I don't know if you know the history of our inn, but we have people, it's kind of themed after Zion's. We've got a lot of like really cool rock formations and stuff inside the building, and it's just located at one of our buildings now, but we get people from all over staying there that are traveling through with Zion's National Park, and we get a lot of really good feedback. I was going to maybe bring some of that tonight, but I didn't want to be too long-winded. So, but yeah, we think this will be a perfect fit for what we've kind of got going in regards to that type of business there already. So.
Basically, the main thing that we're talking about tonight with our public hearing is simply the height portion of that, because as far as fire protection and all those safety precautions, those have been met through the building department.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't say they've been met yet, but they will have to be met. The height was something we did discuss during staff. It didn't seem to be an issue, but all that will have to be addressed. I'm sure at the time that it gets a permit to do the additional stuff on it. So.
One of the questions I suppose we'll always ask as we look at these height restrictions is, and since it's in the middle of your development there, probably not an issue, but does it block view from any of the homes that surround your property?
No, no, not at all. I think it's actually pretty centrally located. All those buildings around
Or all
our
yours?
offices. If you go a little bit to the north, yes, there's a set of homes along there, but again, they're set up about 10 feet high. There's a wall there.
Yeah.
Really won't obtrude anything as far as the views. And originally, when I brought this into the Planning Commission, they suggested if you do want to go higher, maybe put it more central, and that's kind of where it ended up. And that's why we thought, well, if we do want to go higher, it's in a spot that's out of the way, kind of central to everything else. So
That's attractive design.
Thank
From
you.
Telegraph, you were already down in quite a bit, right?
Yeah, so Telegraph, about 5 feet. So originally we wanted to make this a sign for Cottontown. That was the idea. And we brought that in, had some discussion. Like I said, it's probably been 3 or 4 years ago. And, the sign ordinance for that area we were pretty limited. And so we just felt like it wasn't the right time to pursue that. So ended up, putting it more central and. we
They'll
did-
still see it from Telegraph. though, won't they?
You will. You kind of have to see through the barn and the playhouse a little bit. I mean, it's
Signage is there.
Yeah.
It doesn't really.
if you're worried about, I think it'll be kind of more of a neat element to everything to where like, it just might have a little, height area that sticks out above some more of the buildings, but it's not going to be some big obtrusive building, I don't think. I mean, you can see the size of it compared to, what's there already. It's not really that big.
It'll be kind of more of a cute feature
Yeah,
in there. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
You're gonna put a light on it like the pyramid down in Vegas.
Off the top, you
Off
mean?
the top.
Straight up in the air.
Exactly. Maybe I can get someone to jump over it on the
Yeah.
motorcycle.
Flashing thing.
Yeah.
Questions for Rob? This is a public hearing. Any of you out there that might have an interest in this project, wanna come on up?
My name is Kurt Grant Cotterill. I own Grant's Plumbing on Telegraph Street. And I think this is great. I really do. They've done a marvelous job there on that cotton town. But one thing we have a problem with is 300 West and all the traffic on Telegraph Street. And what I want to say today is that we need a traffic light there. We constantly hear brakes screeching and tires squealing on that intersection, and we need something to help us out there. The more development we're going to have on 300 West, it's just going to get worse. So, and I just a petition to council to consider that if it isn't already on the works. I don't know. So, but that's what I'm here tonight to say. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. Appreciate that.
I'm Steve Martin, a resident of our beautiful city. I would just like to remind the city council of the debacle on Telegraph when they apparently approved a tall building, went under construction, and got torn down. They're thinking of approving another tall, multi-story building here. It's not on Telegraph, but nearby. Keep that in mind, that you'll be setting a precedent. Future developers who are going to say, hey, you approved that, why not me? It's just like to have you keep that in mind. Approving things of this sort. Thank you.
So question for you though, Steve, if I might. So I guess I'm trying to understand the precedence concept in relationship to this. Those issues seem quite different to me. I think I know the one you're talking about, but is even still, this is a precedence. I guess the precedence I feel like we're setting here, so I want your feedback on this, is that this is a very cute, very interesting little piece of tying history into our community, and I think that's a precedence I want to set. But I'm curious to know from your position.
No,
You feel
my
where's the
position is
negativity?
I had a similar experience. I'm from Holiday, Utah originally. They had the same thing happen. It was a 5-8-story building downtown Holiday. They tore it down because of the pressure from the citizens. They didn't want large buildings. There are no large buildings in the city of Holiday. So when I saw this and what happened here, it just had that parallel. And I just want to remind you that there might be down the road something that might be difficult for you to deal with. Just like the people that carved the D on the hill of the D.
Because we've said yes to this, it would be difficult to say no again to something else, or I guess I'm trying to find your point.
Well, again, all I'm asking you to point out is the height is being going up, which is not within the city code as it currently stands. They're asking for an exception.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of a devil's advocate to give you a heads up. Don't forget what's happened in the past. So
Okay.
hang in there. Well, I'll leave it.
Well,
at that. I'm here for another
I'm
minute.
comfortable with my ability to say no, and my daughter was here. She left, but she could tell you about my ability to say no too. So,
Well, the building I'm referring to, the foundation is still sitting there.
well, it's a
By-
it was a
on Quitten's
little
property.
different animal, but yeah. Thank
I
you
know
for your
it's
point.
that was more of a commercial,
Yeah.
strictly a retail commercial versus I guess this is a senior housing project, as I understand. I was here for the planning meeting, and just heard the arguments then.
It's more of a motel, lack of a better term.
Anyway, just the overall appearance of the city and the environment that's being created. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sherry Tate, and I am Robbie's cousin, I'll say that. But when I know Robbie's been working on this for years, and when he brought that silo in, at first I was relieved that somebody saved a little bit of agriculture from Gentry Dairy. But if you look at Cottontown Village, what George and Robbie, they have created is our downtown history, right there with the cotton mill, right there with Nyson Park. And this just makes me smile, because I think people are going to drive down to our businesses to see what that darling silo is in the middle of town. I hope you can see it from the freeway. And it is not Telegraph Towers by any means. That thing was scary, and we're glad it's gone. But this is beautiful, and I think that we're going to want to have something like this. I think that's where our business is, really. A lot of our actually downtown, where people walk, get an ice cream cone, go to the play. So I'm excited, and I hope that you guys will really think this through. And you always do have a voice to say yes or no, we know this, but this is something that I think is a definite yes and is so fun, and I hope you'll consider it.
Thank you, Sherry.
My name's Nick Whitney. I'm a resident here in Washington City. I want to say, Robbie, I think this is a fantastic idea. I noticed that you had mentioned that it's going to be 2 units, 1 unit down below and then 1 unit with a 2-story like a loft. And you had mentioned that you wanted to make it look like Zion or something of that nature. Maybe you can clarify that.
So we have an existing themed room on site called the Honeymoon Trail, and it's themed after a lot of the stuff you see here in southern Utah. Got rock sculpture inside. There's a shower that's 15 feet tall. It looks like you're in a slot canyon. So I mean, it's themed really neat. This is just another idea that we have to kind of keep, a themed idea going on that would correlate with. Yeah,
Probably this is not going to be Zionish inside, probably more
No.
farmish.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
That would, because I was going to share Sherry's sentiments about it, that if it's from Gentry Farm, if we could get some more farm themed stuff, something more Washington City themed. There's enough Zion Canyon themed stuff around here. It would be great to have something Washington City, something that we can all be proud of. And when we have visitors that come in from out of town, we can say, hey, there's a great B&B, and it tells you some history of Washington City, not just of Zion, because I think Zion Springdale gets enough of our business. I think it'd be great to have a B&B here that we can send our friends to when they come into town, because we really don't have a whole lot here in Washington. I think this would be just that extra push for something local, and then maybe we can get more B&Bs or hotels or things of that nature in our territory. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Anybody else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we close our public hearing with a little caveat. I find it interesting that some people love this silo. I milked cows under that very silo for 2 years, and it doesn't have quite the memory others do. But anyway, I'll make the motion to close our public hearing.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second.
Aye.
Granger, aye.
Ward, aye.
Thank you. Move on to item B, public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change request, Z-19-01. By the way, that decision will be made in 2 weeks for that. Okay. Public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change request, Z-1901. A request from R112 residential single-family 12,000 square foot minimum lots to R2, 1 and 2 family residential located at the west side of the corner of Washington Fields Road and Washington Dam Road. Applicant Jeremy Green and Kyle Erdley.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, the applicant is requesting approval of a change of zoning of 0.89 acres. The requested changes from the current zoning of single-family residential 12,000 square foot minimum are referred to as the R112 zoning designation. And the proposed change is for the 1 and 2 family residential R2 zoning designation. The R2 request is for the purpose of developing the 3 parcels into a future twin home development. The general plan land use designations for this location is the medium density residential. The medium density residential carries with it the 4.5 to 6 dwelling unit per acre density ratio and allows for zoning districts of R2, R16, and R18. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is PUD to the west and south, R110 to the north, and PUD and RA half to the east. Staff has reviewed the requested zone change, finds it conforms to the general plan and the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their January 16th meeting, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-19-01 for the zone change request from single-family residential 12,000 square foot minimum, or R112, to the proposed 1 and 2 family residential R2 zoning designation onto you, the City Council. That's based on the findings in the report.
How much does that change the number of units from what it would have been with a single family?
It basically doubles. So they're going to put where there would have been 1 home per lot. Now there's going to be a twin home per lot. The home sizes will probably be roughly the same, just because of setback issues, etc. Except in this case, there'll just be a home side by side. And due to the nature of the location with the streets, find it really more appealing to be that, as we talked about in the general plan. This was recently approved by you good folks a couple months ago for a general plan amendment to head to this particular opportunity to do this zone change.
Goes from 3 to 6, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Planning Commission's report?
Well, again, they've been part of this from the beginning, as you folks have, and they actually feel better. I'm going to try to bring this up for you in the aerial. So it's these 3 lots that you see in between those 2 homes right there. So it's at the intersection of the Fields Road and Washington Dam Road. Planning Commission felt very comfortable with this. Staff does too. It's hard to think to make somebody put in a regular full-blown home at this intersection, especially with the nature of they can't have their front yards out on
Yeah, I
Washington
remember that discussion.
Fields
Yeah.
Road. They're going to be taking that easement access along the back in between Nyson Hill and the properties. So, you know, staff's perspective is this is the best use for these 3 lots.
I think we talked about how the look from the road would be similar, or it's just as good.
Yeah, it'll
because what you'd
look
see
like a
is the-
2-story home.
Yeah.
from the street view. Sorry, Councilman. Turner.
But just, you mentioned the right-of-way, access right-of-way. Now, through our general plan process, it was presented that right-of-way was going to be granted on across to the north.
Yeah, we've just approved a subdivision a couple weeks ago that has an ingress egress easement from that street right there, which is labeled 1575 South, and it runs in between those two lots. They keep going smaller when I'm bringing them at 16 and 17.
Maybe where it's just a right-of-way, just the way those lots were graded, didn't look like that right-of-way was in place. So that's why
It's not. I mean, it's not on the. It's on the plat.
Okay.
And the folks that live in lot 17, that'll be their driveway. Their curb cut's going to be where that property line is and where that easement's been placed. That'll be the curb cut. So the folks that live or purchase lot 17, they'll enter their home from there, as well as make this a tie-in from these 5 lots through. So it'll actually be, you'll be able to get off or on down here by this particular home that's 1670. That'll still be in place, and then you'll just follow all the way up, and then you can head right out to 1570.
And there won't be an issue with lot 17 to have cars from those 3 places going past.
Well, they're going to know when they buy this, that's an easement for those folks to
Okay.
get through.
All right.
And they literally share driveway?
We're just saying that's how they're going to enter their property.
Yeah.
So they'll probably have a driveway off of this
It's
easement.
not their driveway.
Yeah.
It's just
No,
their
it won't be their
egress.
driveway. It'll be how they access their lot.
Same curb cut.
Yes.
Yeah. And then did we ever get figured out trash collection? They'll be taking it up to this cul-de-sac, is that correct? Or this corner?
To be honest, I would not be surprised if the trash truck can drive right through there.
Oh, and
It's
pick it
not
up.
that small.
Okay.
So
And it seems like they were still working on getting the easement on paper.
it's
then
on
they
the
did-
plat. In
they-
fact, I just looked at the plat yesterday. We have some other issues with the plat,
Oh,
and it's definitely on there. So it's labeled. It's going to be labeled when it's all said and done. A public utility and drainage and access easement, 20-foot wide.
so that's all I.
So,
Good.
yeah. Any other questions I can answer for council?
No other questions?
Yeah, I think we went over it quite a bit during the other change. So.
Okay. Thank you, Drew. It is a public hearing. Any of you that have an interest in this project would like to make a comment, we'd appreciate it. It looks like not. If not, I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
Moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second.
Ward eye.
Granger, aye.
Turek, aye.
Thank you. Move on to item C. Public hearing for consideration to approve zone change request Z-1902. Request from open space to I-2 heavy industrial located approximately Landfill Road, applicant Plum Holdings SG LLC.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is an application request to approve a zone change of 89.80 acres. This request comes currently zoned as open space. The request changes from the current zoning of open space to the proposed heavy industrial I-2 zoning designation. The I-2 request is for the purpose of developing the parcel into a future industrial development. The general plan land use designations for this location is industrial. The industrial designation allows for the zoning districts of the I-1, which is light industrial, and I-2, which is heavy industrial. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is open space to the south and east, I-2 to the west, and the Washington County zoning to the north, which is roughly near the landfill, just to give you a perspective of where this sits. Staff's reviewed the requested zone change, finds it conforms to the general plan and the zoning ordinance. Planning Commission reviewed the request at their January 16th, 2019 meeting where a public hearing was held. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-19-02 for the zone change request from open space to the proposed heavy industrial I-2 designation, as shown in your exhibits, and that's on to you, the City Council, and of course, based on the findings. I'd be glad to answer any questions that the council might have on this proposal. It is literally out almost in the middle of nowhere, just to answer you're wondering. I'll bring it up on the aerial. It's really even hard to find on an aerial.
Well,
but
the landfill is the nearest landmark, right?
the landfill's the nearest, yeah. As you can see, and then I'm just going to highlight the particular area, and you'll notice the kind of triangular thing, but my box will always show up and be in the way. But they're only zone changing. This is all one kind of tied together piece, and it's with that. Sorry, you can see that little tie right in the middle, and it joins these two together. But we're only looking at the one here on the left-hand side, where Landfill Road runs through the middle of it. Then that heads on to Western Rock. It's a sand and gravel pit. So we're looking at the area, the triangle piece on the left-hand side there.
They own the land at the bottom
They-
of that, is that right?
Yeah, they own the whole blue boxed area.
Yeah, what's the intent for the rest of that? Do you have any idea?
At this time, I don't think they have one.
Okay.
That's a little bit more rough terrain. So that'll come at a future time, when all the easy stuff is taken care of, I think. So, but the terrain does get a little more difficult over in that area.
So just to be clear, Drew, we're talking the triangle piece that's Landfill Road, separated and, oh, there you go.
Yeah, this triangle piece right here.
Okay, so that whole
You'll notice
parcel,
that'll match up with your.
both sides of Landfill Road.
Yeah, so it's on each side right here. Okay. And you notice, and I'm just going to flip back real quick. You notice there's some odd pieces that aren't included. That's because the topography is pretty bad right there. And so it was going to fall under the hillside protection, and they just don't want to have to mess with that, which is a wise decision. So they're just zoning this particular area right here that's hatched out in the red.
So does that reduce their responsibility for water issues and?
Oh, no, they'll always have to take care of drainage. Don't think that gets them out of. It just means that they know it's going to be too hard to develop that. So they're not even putting it in the zone change.
Well, they could put it in and not develop it.
They could. But like I said, the Planning Commission I think is the one that really pointed this out and just said they'd feel better if they took that out so they don't have to worry about it.
And there was some concern about the alignment of those. You're confident with the alignment that matches the topography?
Yeah, because what on our particular map, they're able to tie into, we have things on a topographical design that I don't even have on my iPad through our Public Works. And they have that, and most of the engineering firms have that as well. And so those are the areas that are the ones that would kick them out.
So in essence, what we're saying is we're not going to zone that. Please don't ever plan on building on that topography.
As of right now, that's the statement.
Which the nice thing about that, I think, at least from my perspective, is, instead of zoning it and then them trying to become creative with the hillside ordinance, we avoid that completely.
Yeah, these are the areas that are over the percentage that says no build. There's still some areas in here that they may be able to, but they can mitigate those if they want to proceed and go through the hillside board. They're just taking these out that won't. Yeah.
And I think that's the opinion that the developer had when he brought it in. I think the Planning Commission expanded that a little bit.
And so that's why we came back and took these pieces. This is an updated map from what they had. There's, included all of it. And so it's just wise to take it out.
So I had some questions on the I-2 zoning designation, because we're looking at straight zoning here. So once this is in place, so just looking through the list of that, the manufacturing and repairs, of goods not otherwise listed, which is a permitted use, and then there's a small subsection of things that are not permitted or would be permitted with on a conditional use.
Correct.
And so I guess I'm just trying to get an idea of what could, well, I guess I have two points on that. We've had trouble with the conditional use because once they mitigate that, that would go through the planning commission, and they really don't have any, they wouldn't really have any grounds to reject it, even up to and including, things like manufacturing of acids and batteries and things like that. I mean, they're still going to follow all the regulations, but
Right. The life safety issues you can deny for those. If there's a,
but if they're mitigating it and following all of
Correct.
the federally mandated, you don't really have much control over that at that point.
in any heavy industry, yeah, according to our book, that would be the case.
So there's some products that are, for forming and that are powder related that some of those getting in the lungs are kind of scary. I don't know. I haven't ever passed the zoning off for an I2. So looking through the regs on that, I'm trying to, maybe I'm being a little bit alarmist, but I'm trying to decide if there's anything in that I2 that I would be really uncomfortable if it came in, because this is our only shot at it, is right now.
Right.
The zoning.
But if it will help you, to the north of them is a landfill, and to the south of them is a sand and gravel operation.
There's no better place in the city to
two,
have
two
it.
of their harshest. Yeah, those are two of your harshest things is a landfill and a sand and gravel, or when it comes down to things.
So I couldn't find anything like nuclear waste or, really scary things like that. I just wonder how robust our code is for protection of larger area. Not that I think it's going to go there, but what property changes hands and your code, the code that we have is the protection that our citizens rely on for this. So I guess there's a question mark I'm hanging in there. What about scary things like that?
Just my thoughts on that, and it's a good question because conditional use, again, who will judge? So conditional use is correct. Conditional, if an adverse impact can be mitigated. Again, the initial deciding body using their policing powers will be the city council, on whether they've kind of met those
No,
standards.
I thought that would be
Not on a
planning commission
conditional
for this, right?
That is planning commission.
Right?
I'm sorry.
It
Okay.
is.
So let me, probably my
You're the
thoughts.
appeal authority
That's
on
right,
that.
sorry. So my thoughts are probably the same.
Okay.
But anyway, so enforcing the police powers, it would be the planning commission. So again, they'll determine if the adverse impacts have been mitigated. Now, the question mark that you talk about that always hangs over the head all the time with conditional use is the deciding body, were they within their authority to make the decision either to approve or deny based upon how they perceive the mitigation of the adverse impacts. And sometimes we never know, and so there's always a court of next appeal in case somebody disagrees with that. So,
Well, there isn't really, unless the court of next appeal is if the planning commission denies it, right? If it's approved through there because they feel like they have to because the way the ordinance is written, there really isn't any appeal process that the city has. Or am I wrong?
well, no, I think, and Jeff can wade into this, but I think if it's approved, okay, so what I'm talking about, the appeal authority, or what I'm talking about is on the appeal is if the planning commission was to say, we don't think the standard has been met with regards to mitigating the adverse impacts, then the applicant has an appeal process.
Right.
Okay. So that's what I'm referring to.
Now,
is
on an
that.
approval, any citizen
Yes.
has the right to appeal to you folks. So if the surrounding property owners said, whoa, I think the planning commission felt like they might have been pushed up against the wall and just did it anyway, I'm not feeling comfortable with it, they can make an appeal to you folks,
Can we make an appeal?
the city council.
Can I, the citizen Colleen Granger make an appeal? I know.
Well, she's saying that citizen Colleen Granger, could she make an appeal to city council, and she's a council member on that?
So could the city council on its own appeal? council, and then the city council is the actual, is the actual appellate body for that land use decision.
I know.
It's a little bit iffy. So
Yeah, it's so complicated. That's
So cities can't appeal those things. They've been done in the past. But I would say to your question, could you?
You'd be sitting out here. Yeah.
Okay.
That was going to be my next point, is that you'd probably be sitting here as that applicant to the city council on appeal.
Do we have any idea what the intentions are for this property? Are
We
there
could-
intentions?
I think they have a representative here. We could ask them. I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't know if they.
I realize we don't have to know that, but.
So we're looking at this.
Interesting until I just threw that out.
Yeah, we'll play with it, yeah.
Because there's nothing that says you can't do that, but by default, the fact that you think it's wrong, citizens could say, and then applicant could say, you predetermine what your decision is, therefore you still have to recuse yourself.
Well, yeah.
There's a law that you can make things you already made your mind up.
So we're talking about this from the standpoint of a conditional use approval. But the way the ordinance is written for the I-2, and this is just under manufacturing, it says manufacturing and repair of goods not otherwise listed are approved, automatically approved. Then you have a smaller subset that goes into the conditional use. That conditional use, and I won't read it even though it's not an exhaustive list, includes ASIV, aluminum manufacturing, batteries, asphalt, mining products. My concern is as a city, I don't think we've had a lot of experience with industrial. If it's not on that list, then it falls into the other category, which is automatically approved, and there is no conditional use appeal. So it's just the fact that we've put a list in there that then, I mean, if it's outside of that list, it's automatically approved.
So the question is, is our zoning ordinance adequate?
Yeah, that's what I get worried about, because we're not an industrial city, and I welcome this project. I'm grateful for it. I just looking forward to it's not something we've had to really muscle up on industrial areas. I just, that language is so open, it leaves me concerned.
It's just a hearing.
Yeah.
Well, probably Fred did anything. You have time to amend your zoning ordinance as well if you make a point of that right away.
I was also enjoying the irony of alphabetical order as that listed, septic tanks right next to sexually oriented businesses.
We did that on purpose, unintentionally, intentionally. Yeah.
With that note,
Anything else I can answer for you?
Any other questions for Drew? Again, folks, this is a public hearing. Any of you out there that have a comment on this, we would appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Greg Savage. I'm a resident in Washington City. Greg Savage. I don't see that we need to, I would disapprove of this right away because of the fact we already, if there's industrial type of vehicles and stuff coming from there over onto Country Way, it just adds to the problem that we already have with the 18-wheelers coming from the dump and the gravel pit and stuff. It's the whole situation out there, opening up that bridge has turned our street from a lovely street into a horrible street. It's brought a mess on our street that, I personally sweep it up for you guys. My wife or I sweep it up for you guys. Number two, you're getting a lot more dumping on the shoot, I don't even know the name of the road out to the dump. You're getting a lot of
people coming by and throwing stuff off, which is crazy to me. I saw a TV in a ravine the other day at a free dump. That is just,
if you would drive out there, you would hear my voice.
Yeah.
There's sofas, there's pallets, there's car parts.
I think we're getting that in the city, almost any place that there's just not regularly, just houses everywhere. It's from to just yell out their front door to yell.
No, it doesn't. They do it when the dump closes on Saturday.
Oh, really?
And on Sundays, I see them.
Yeah, that is
and,
just
and
seems so
Warner
tragic
Valley
to
doesn't
me.
get anything. I ride motorcycles in Warner Valley weekly.
Yeah.
They don't get anything like this gets. It's horrible.
Hmm.
So I would disapprove this before you bring any sort of industrial trucks on our street anymore. You've got to solve the problem that you already have. It is horrible. I'm not sure, but I certainly can find out if it's even legal to bring double side dumps down a residential street. It's absolutely disgusting what you've done to us. It's horrible. Please come sit with me on a Saturday or a Wednesday for all that. How about come, probably not many of you drink coffee, but come have coffee with me tomorrow morning and see how disgusting it is. It's horrible.
And when you say disgusting, I mean, I want
It's disgusting what you run up and down a residential street.
because the dust, the noise. I'm just trying to hone in
All
on
of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. The dust, our street is filthy. And we have these massive trucks going through a residential street where children used to play. Dogs used to come out. We used to have family meetings out in the street. It was beautiful. Since the dump opened, since the bridge opened, we don't see any of that. I don't see any kids. I don't get to know the kids. You know what I'm saying? You have made a complete mess of our street. So before you approve more out here, I sure would like to see a new ingress, a proper ingress and egress, because it's turned into the primary one from the dump to the rest of Washington City. Of course, some people take the original routeway, but it's too long for them now. So I would wait on something like this personally until your new proposed upstream bridge comes in and you get a proper, because you can't run people, you can't run these type of vehicles on a residential street. Horrible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Steve Martin, 2335 on Washington Dam Road, right next to the bridge.
Yours is the email we received,
what?
right?
Up toward the mic, okay. I think living right there next to the bridge, I watch it a lot. I have observed that the center support is already compromised. The river is below it, the river channel bed. And it is my understanding that the city does not have the engineering for that bridge. At least that was the rumor I had received. Therefore, are those trucks even legal on that bridge? Ask the planning commission, a group, whoever they are, whether or not there's been the state inspections. Fortunately, I haven't had time to follow up on that question, see if it's been properly inspected, which is required by the state every 2 years. So, we got a bridge to compromise, and the city has approved, and I think illegally, used money to buy a portion of the bridge to allow the dump trucks and haul trucks to use that bridge. And as mentioned by the previous fellow, the dust is horrible. I can wash my truck, put it in the garage in less than 24 hours in a closed, tight garage. It's covered with dust. We hire people to come clean our home frequently to take care of just of the dust, because from that bridge to the landfill, it's dirt. The other problem is the noise. There are haul trucks for the construction companies that just have a big steel box on the back. They come across there and it sounds like thunder in my backyard. I'm sorry, but we already are being negatively impacted by that road that's going out there. And as he mentioned, there can only be an increase in the types of large carrying vehicles. And, maybe someday, I know it's the wish of several of my neighbors, the bridge would collapse. It would eliminate the problem, but then what happens? I'll get taxed to fix the damn thing. Sorry. And so we're all liable for that. I just want you to know that I don't approve of this either for the same reason. It's just too heavy with industrial stuff. Now, again, I have in my next comments for the next item on your agenda, there is a road on the master plan called Purgatory Parkway. Goes from the Long Valley Junction, past Western Rock, up the valley here somewhere, and ties back into SR9. Now that would seem to be the best solution to even my issues concerning heavy traffic coming up from the residential side and the industrial side. I think you're way ahead of having, making an approval of any of this, in my opinion, because you need to resolve the traffic and the road problems first, and then let a developer decide how much he's going to put into there. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
So sorry, I'm trying to follow your point on the road up through SR9. Can you help me understand what you're saying? Are you saying wait for that to get developed, or move this type of development there?
No, I think it should not be off development. It's open space now. There's nothing to be approved to drive that road. There would be
no. I guess I'm trying to understand your point. Open space is kind of the default in the city. In some cases it truly means open space, but in most cases it just means it has not yet been zoned. So, but I'm trying to follow your point about, you mentioned the road going up to SR9. Are you trying to say that this should be postponed until that is in, so that can be a different route, or are you trying to say that this type of industrial should be placed out there?
That's only part of it. I'm going to be addressing the next issue on your agenda.
No, I'm trying to understand your last point, though.
I'm sorry. Here's Southern Parkway.
Yeah.
They're going to, on the master plan, I have a copy of it with me.
It wasn't you. He's
No,
trying
just
to help
pull
you.
it out for you.
Yeah, here's the Long Valley right here.
Yeah.
That is, come off there, follow this here. This is Western Rock. Around Western Rock and out here. That's our line. That's on the plans right now. When is that going to happen? That would relieve the traffic issues from a residential area and the industrial.
Okay, that answers my question.
That's what I'm pointing
Okay.
out. So I think we're too far. We're getting ahead of what the infrastructure of this area is going to support. Keep your community happy. So, that's my point. And, this area here on the agenda, that puts between 1,000 and 2,000 homes in there. So you're going to be looking at X. So there's going to be a lot of cars. In my estimate, somewhere around 3,000 units per day, cars. Tax act on top of that. I know there's over 100 haul trucks that go by my home every day across that country way. And plus, if you add more, I don't know. Anyway, that's, I just don't approve of getting this far ahead of the planning process without solving some of the infrastructure that you're going to be faced with. I know you're going to dump the cost of that off onto that poor old developer. That's the way it works. So,
yeah, the
it's probably
one thought
setting
I
up.
have, especially with your concern of the dust, is obviously as that develops, that road turns to oil and the dust ceases to exist.
Yes. Eventually, we're going to get rid of the dust.
That portion of it helps, but the size of the vehicle, I certainly can understand the concern
Well,
of the
dust
of the
problem
size
will be
of the
solved because obviously you're going to require the developer to put it under asphalt. The same
Correct.
thing from this development down to the Countryway Bridge.
Correct. That's why I say the dust issue, I would think it would help
Yes,
over
but
time.
it does not alleviate the dangers.
I
That's
understand
my
what you're
big
saying
issue.
with the size of the
dangers-
vehicles now still
I mean,
coming
the
through.
Countryway's got about 7 or 8 homes. Most of them have small children. They live in fear every day. I know you posted a 25-mile-an-hour sign. I'll guarantee you only half of them might slow down. And someday somebody's going to get killed. And I don't know. Does that come back to the city or just for what they did when they approved a commercial haul road through that one piece of street? I hope you understand the risks that you're facing. In my prior life, I was a bank examiner for the Federal Reserve Bank. And I analyzed lots of loans and I assessed the risks. And I see some real risks here that need to be addressed and should be taken into consideration before you do some zoning changes. Because all you're going to do is encourage the developers to go ahead. And you'll put some pressure on them to take care of certain issues. But I think those issues should be answered in advance rather than just change the zoning. Let's address the big picture.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm done.
Anybody else?
How you doing? I'm Adam Allen with Bush and Gudgel. I represent the client, and I'd just like to touch on a couple of those points. As far as for the dust, we are currently working with the city for improvement plans for that entire road, all the way from the bridge, all the way to the end of this property right there. And so we are working on improvement plans to get that improved, get the oil road in there. That would be going with this development and development that you guys are going to see in the next segment. Also, as far as I know, that is a larger road and it's been planned. I don't know how long it's been planned for it to be a larger road, but it's definitely not a 50-foot residential road. And then as far as the dumping and things go, we can help mitigate that as we go along and start to develop that. And the dumping and things like that will stop.
But this will still be the major route in and out for your property.
Well, yes, there's that route there, and then we're trying to work with the neighbors to get it completely fully connected with the full road all the way up through and over the hill. So they'll be trying to make the whole connection there.
Can you show me that up there?
Work with these neighbors here, go and be
Okay.
to get a connection, to make this be connected easier, so it's not, right now it's just a smaller road.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get that improved through here with this.
Okay.
Amin Shaheen, also a Washington resident on Country Way. Basically, to go back to his point, though, the road itself may be wide, but the bridge is not. I mean, I don't know that you could pass two of those large industrial trucks on that bridge at the same time. The bridge is very small, and just kind of to go, I actually liked Councilman Ward's, I guess the example that he gave is I would love to see a more clearly defined what those parameters are going to be for what type of manufacturing is going to go in there, because living there, what's going to be the weights. If it gets approved and it just goes in there and then it's something that can throw some pretty hazardous things, and I understand there's some EPA requirements and there would be those things looked at, but I liked that point. I hadn't thought about that, but it really makes a good point for somebody that lives right there. We're trying to do everything we can do with our home values and obviously the safety of our kids, and adding more trucks of that larger weight is just a terrifying thing. I probably have the youngest kids on the street, so I would definitely recommend to table this until we get further, advanced knowledge on what that road, the Purgatory Road, and or what the limitations on manufacture would be. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brent Bassett. How are you doing, good?
Yeah, good.
Very good. I'm not opposed to growing in this kind of county, but I do agree we've got to table this for now. We do have a lot of safety issues out there on our street. We've come to you guys before, and just keep it in mind.
Just to, I actually was going to ask Amin the same question, but since you stepped up, I'll let you speak to them. I guess the question I would have, and I understand that the traffic's probably your biggest concern and issue, and rightly so. I understand that. But if this were to develop residentially, obviously the traffic is going to be substantially more, smaller vehicles, but a lot more of them. I guess that's the question we look at and say to weigh with that is to say, okay, if we change uses here,
there's a way for them other trucks to go. I'm not opposed to having houses go there. I mean, that's what we're here for. But have those main commercial trucks go through our road, and then have them go all through what they're proposing to do with whatever. You know, that's
so
modeling
your
that
feeling
you're
is
gonna have
you'd a lot rather
agility.
have cars than trucks, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. That was kind of where.
And I figured I'd come up too, because Brent and I actually asked that question when we came in. It's a catch-22. It's one of those like, would we rather have a lot of big trucks and it ends at 5 and it doesn't happen on the weekends, or would we rather have a whole bunch of cars coming all day every day?
And I'll tell you, if it's cars, you'll have 4 times as many as you will trucks.
Exactly.
So you're talking 4 times as many versus half the size.
Exactly. And so I think that's why, we feel like we want to come, get as much input as we can get so that we can also make a voice known. But exactly, we don't know. I wish there was go back to Steve's thing, we'll just pray for Mother Nature to do its duty and get rid of that bridge. But until the powers that be help us out in that area,
Some of the thoughts that I start having, and I'm speaking out loud, I haven't talked with our city people to know feasibilities, but some of the thoughts I start thinking is what would speed bump, if we put larger speed bumps in there to possibly try and discourage, number one, to say, look, I can only go, put 2 or 3 of them, I can only go 5 miles an hour and it beat the crap out of my big truck. I'm going to go the other way. I discourage you from coming this way.
It's gonna bump stuff out of those trucks right onto that road.
Well, and that's the thing, that dirt road. I mean, I won't take my truck on it.
I would have thought that would discourage it.
And it doesn't. I mean, if you're in a dump truck, I would think that would just beat you to death. It wouldn't even be worth the time, but it's not. It's not deterring anybody from it. So
It doesn't. Speed going down that hill, and when they hit the bridge, you just hear them jump right on top of the bridge, and then they slow down a little bit. But
Knowing drivers, it matters less the type of vehicle and who owns it. When you're driving somebody else's truck.
Well, thank you all. Any other comments on this one? I'll entertain a motion to.
I'll make
Close
the
this
motion
hearing.
that we close our public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Green's aye.
Ward aye.
Okay, let's move on to item D, public hearing for consideration to approve a general plan amendment request G-1901 to revise the current lines of open space, medium density, and medium high density to a feathering effect, moving from the river to the industrial area and landfill located along Country Way on the north side of the river. Same applicant.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. This application is seeking to amend the general plan in this particular area, as you see outlined. This is just down the street from the one you just looked at. That main white line running at an angle, that's the road that's been in question that has all the bumps, the noise, the thunder, all of it. That's the road. The request area covers 202.88 acres. The current land use designations are open space, medium high density residential, and medium density residential. The applicant is seeking approval to have the land use designation boundaries change as it relates to each of those. So in other words, we're not changing designations, just the size and location of each one. And this is currently, I'll give you an idea, here is how it pretty much exists right now. The blue being open space, the green being medium density, and that red area off to the side is the medium high in this particular area.
How large is that red area?
That red area, it's that big. I'm sorry. It's
That's such
yeah.
a good answer.
I'm not sure. Adam, you roughly know how much it is right now. I'd probably guess. Well, it's more. I'd probably speculate it's somewhere between 3 and 5. That'd be my best guess, just because I know some of the properties are right here in this undesignated Rio Version subdivision, and a lot of the properties I know are 1/2 and 1 acre. So I'm just somewhere between probably 3 and 5. In essence, we're just wanting to change the boundaries of each of these. And so this is currently what it is right now. And the proposed is to the blue area, again, remaining open space, the green area being the medium density, and then the black hashed area being medium high density. So you can see that it jumps a bit. And I do know the acreage of those. I hope I do. Again, getting back, the general plan designations are, as stated, what you've seen, and they're just, again, wanting to change those boundaries on this particular project. The surrounding zoning is open space to the north and west, open space to the south, and R18 in Washington County zoning to the east. Applicant is wishing to amend the parcel and hopes for future residential development in this particular area. The medium-high residential designation allows for the zoning of R3 zoning districts, which is multifamily, and the medium-density residential designation allows for the zoning districts of R2, R16, and R18. Planning Commission reviewed this request at their January 16th meeting. I hope you had a chance to read the minutes. There was a lot said in that meeting. The Planning Commission sent a recommendation on to you, unanimously recommending approval for the proposed G-19-01 to amend the general plan land use as outlined in your exhibits onto you, the City Council. I'm glad to answer any questions that the council might have as it relates to this application. Now, just to give you a little history, right now the zoning on this is PCD. It was referred to as the Sunrise Valley Planned Community Development. Never came to fruition. Got approved. I'm not sure what happened. I just had barely started working, and I think a month after this got approved by that current city council. That's before both Councilman Turek and my time, and nothing ever came to be. And it went into foreclosure. When the great crash happened, and got picked up by the FDIC, from what I understand, and somebody up north picked it up and held it for a while. Then Plum Holdings picked up the property. And of course, they're the applicant. So that's just a little history on the parcel. So
Why would do they? It's not. Is there a reason they don't want to maintain the PCD?
well, if you saw the PCD, it was a little different.
PCD is a zone. I mean, they can come in with their own plan as long as it meets the PCD zone.
Yeah, I don't know if they want to bite off doing it all under one PCD. I think because the best thing for them to do would come, because they can come in and propose a master planned area, and we wouldn't be here tonight, so to speak. We can overlook all those and take what that is, as long as the area is kind of somewhat conforms and all those. We can kind of move those and around and get the finished product. So, but I think they have a different plan of attack for this. So obviously you can tell the black area is going to be for multifamily because it's the medium high density. The R3 would be the zone would go in there. The green would be, again, R16 or R18 subdivisions. The blue would remain open space.
Well, I had the same question. My next question is, the open space, are we intending to just, well, I guess we're shifting it because we're shifting the boundaries, but is that going to be true open space and remain open space?
A lot of it's floodplain and floodway, and erosion control district. So I would say my short answer, I'm not going to say 100% because people can change those things through engineering. But for the most part, yes, and if you notice and look at it, it didn't change too much on the open space. It came back, this is more current to today. Again, we've always let everybody know that the river never stays in the same place for some reason. They don't like to be told to stay in one place. They like to move. So the river continues to go east, west, north, south, whenever, especially when heavier waters come through, it'll change the channel at any time. So this is more of a current with what the floodplain.
And that makes sense with the floodplain, but what about the little finger up top that cuts back in?
It's very, the topography is extremely starting to get into, you can see those areas up there. And it doesn't show real, but if you've been out there, it really starts jutting upward. The questions I can handle for you.
In your initial presentation, did we get a total potential home count with the zoning that they're requesting?
Well, I can give you roughly just by, I mean, if they hit the density ratios.
Yeah.
The area, the medium high density carries a 7 to 12. I tell people never come in at the high end, so let's just go back at 712. So let's just say 11 units at 44.5 acres. We're looking at 400 and basically 450 to 400, 500 homes in the medium high would be, probably a good guesstimation on that. Then the medium density, that carries with it 4.5 to 6. And let's just say we could even give them the 6 at the highest max. So 6, that's another 5. So you're looking roughly 1,000.
Is that total or 1,000 on top of?
1,000 total in this area for both that 120.
So 500 each.
Yeah, that's a rough guesstimation.
Yeah, I mean, I can see you're doing the math.
Just hitting the rate, the density ratios. And again, I don't know if they'd hit the 500 in that 87. It'd be really, really difficult to do even in an R16.
There's a suggestion in the notes that they suggested they didn't think they'd be close to the densities being requested, but
Yeah.
who knows?
So again, it's going to be somewhere between 900.
Yeah,
I would say
it's a good
900
thing
and
to say.
1,000, 1,050.
And this was unanimous from the planning commission.
Well, they threw it back and forth.
Well,
No.
they did discuss it for sure.
They did, and they talked about the the green area. They had no issue with because it's already there. This is the issue that changed. This particular area. As staff, I looked at it as we talked about. Again, it gets back to, but I feel comfortable having somebody purchase something under, and I feel a lot better about a townhome project being closer to those landfills and the industrial versus single detached, single family residential. I'd much rather see as a planner, that be more multifamily townhome type project.
Still, all this could occur if it was under a PUD,
Correct.
which that's more control.
And you could drop that seed right now and plant that, let them know that you'd love to maybe see that in a PUD.
Well, it gives us some discussion about open space and trails and,
Mhm.
it gives us an important discussion, I think, especially for those people that might live close to it. Not gonna take care of the traffic issues.
Well, with some creative planning on, in the roads, I guess mostly there, but yeah.
So did you say, Drew, that, and maybe you didn't, so, because I'm still kind of just a little baffled by the motive of not keeping a PCD concept. I mean, of course, there's always requirements with PCD, just like with PUD, that maybe they're trying to avoid a little bit, but you also get to avoid a whole lot of hate and discontent when you go through a zone change, because this is already zoned PCD.
Correct.
So like you said, they don't even have to go through this process. Did you say, and I may have misheard this, did you say that you thought that the PCD, the original PCD, that the densities were going to be just about the same as?
No, I didn't state that. I can't remember what Sunrise Valley was. I just know that as probably today versus 15, 16 years ago, what they were going to market, the kind of homes, probably would not be sought after today. They were a bungalow type of it was kind of a new concept that never did take off much of anywhere. I just couldn't see the product really being a viable business venture for almost anybody with how they had that laid out.
And looking at the minutes, it appears, kind of to answer my earlier question, which I should have at the end. They're still going to be seeking a PUD.
More than
And what
likely,
they're looking at with this change, this is why I'm still kind of, but they're looking at with this change to get an understanding of what the underlying zoning is going to be, but that's irrelevant if they come to a PUD.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I'm confused on the process here, but
well, the process, because, and I'm going to just show you, and probably the biggest driver of this, and I hope I'm not over speaking and Adam can yank my back pocket, but the whole thing behind this is I look at this area, that the proposed area in black is what they're going for. And this is what it is right now.
Yep.
That is why they're here tonight. I'm just guesstimating. So,
density.
Right, because right now, if I go, this is what the general plan says. If they want to do a town and a PUD up here in that green area that you see now, their density ratios are going to be down. I think that's so. Even if they are planning on coming with a PUD, their density ratios here are much better for a project of a townhome, because they'd be limited to 6 maximum in that. So that's got to. I mean, that's my guesstimation. Anything else I can answer for you from staff's side? Now, I will, if I may. I mean, the road's going to be an issue. I just want to point this out for everybody. Hopefully I'm in the right.
We have no control over church sites, school sites, as we continue to add people out there. And we're not going to get to look at them, are we? Well,
the school will come and kind of find their own if they feel that need. They're going to.
they're not, I don't know, after our meeting yesterday, I felt like we need to begin to mention that a little more.
well, I think, I think that with the zoning requests they're having, it's just straight zoning. So other than just trying to be persuasive and have them include that, that's about it. Quite frankly, even under a PCD and a PUD, you could try to, it's possible we could,
Set
try to
aside
use
areas.
it as a bargaining for either density or open space or some of those things. So we do have much more power under straight zoning. I think it's just a request that they consider, but I don't think there's a.
Well, as we look at that, question occurs to me is, where's our next big development in that area? Where do we go from there? Are we in Hurricane next? Is this the edge of Washington City on there?
Roughly it is. And I'll get to that in a second. I was just going to point out, you see that pink dotted dash line? This is the road that runs through it. If you follow it over to the table, it's a minor arterial. It's an 85-foot road. I just want to bring that out for the discussion tonight, because I know in the last item it was talked about, what that road used to be, but it has always been planned before even Country Way came to fruition. Since I've been here, this road's been earmarked as an 85-foot.
Yeah, we've had those troubled discussions with
Yeah.
Country Way about the size of the road initially.
So I just wanted to bring that out for the
Yeah.
discussion that's about, is going to come, is that this road is an 85-foot arterial
And there
road.
really, with the geography out there, really isn't much of an option, and there's nothing on the plan for other roads. I mean, you'd have to build another bridge, go across the river, off that whole mess of getting approval to do that. And that's
the
not on the,
justification for the next one is traffic here. The justification for the other bridges that.
But for Councilman Granger, this is your city limit. Is Washington is the faded yellow. This project borders that on its east. You know, as I read my thing, it's Washington County is where, the opaque color is gone and you get back to the clear, that's the county. So we're right at the east border, the east and west border right there is where the city limit line is.
That property, where does it fit with our annexation plan? Is that in ours or is that Hurricane?
That'll come to us.
This property.
Yes.
Whose property is it? You know who the owner is?
Well, a lot of that you can see it's kind of it looks like some kids have been out there playing with their Tonka trucks because it's big Tonka trucks. That's the Western Rock gravel pit. And so just to let you know, they went through this property that we're talking about tonight. They had the mineral rights on it. A couple of years ago, they came and they dropped a lot of that area anywhere from 4 to 15 feet. But they had to reclaim, they came back and just didn't leave it a ugly looking, scarred area. They did have to come back and flatten a lot of it out.
What mineral are they taking out of there?
They just took out
It's just
gravel.
gravel?
Yeah. Sand, rock, AB. I think they found some great road-based AB stuff, for the most part in there. Close enough they didn't have to mix too much to it. So well, it gives you a little bit of history. Anything else I can answer for you?
No, but I hope you'll continue to clarify the PCD, PUD issue. If we use zoning as a avoidance of doing what ought to be done in a good development, then we need to be thinking about that.
Thank you, Drew. Again, it's a public hearing. Come on up, absolutely.
I'll start from the beginning here. First of all, I'm against Stephen Martin. I have my home out there next to that bridge on the property previously owned by Stanley Turner. And I married his wonderful daughter. I'm a bit intimidated here up there, okay? I don't know why, because I used to present and criticize multi-billion-dollar corporations as a federal examiner. So I'm going to try and remain civilized and poignant.
And we hope you do too. We hope you remain civilized too, because we would appreciate
We
that.
are civilized here? Okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, if you're not going to be civil, then we'll ask you to leave.
Well, I'm just, I'm
Okay.
nervous.
I get it.
I would like to first of all note that Drew here misspoke concerning the designation of that road, Country Way. That bridge was installed only for the purpose of Sunrise Valley. That was required by this council. And subsequent to then would have been. So it hasn't always been on the plan. It only occurred after the bridge was installed. Just a side point there. Again, I am not fully familiar with all the processes of the government here, going to the zoning and community development. So forgive me if I'm out of line, but I would like to start by saying I really don't agree, as I mentioned before, with the proposed zoning change of this one here. This has already been noted, this area is unique. By geography, on the north is a big ridge, the Harrisburg, part of the Harrisburg Dome. On the on the west and the south by the Virgin River. On the last side is the landfill and Western Rock. So it's kind of an isolated place. It's not like a subdivision that's being proposed out in the Washington field. So it has some unique characteristics. The most obvious and concerning one is access to this property. There's a 2-lane bridge and a 2-lane landfill. That's it. And according to my calculations, there's going to be roughly 3,000 additional autos going back and forth. How I calculated that is based on the number of possible homes, 1.5 cars per home, and 2 trips a day. So you're looking at that. Can that meet the criteria for fire and emergencies? how does it fit the state's guidelines relative to ingress, egress into a particular area of the city? This council required Country Way to be built to satisfy that originally. I'm just curious if that is still valid. As I've already mentioned, there is a Purgatory Parkway coming in, and I would hope that it's a 4-lane coming off of the 7th Parkway so that you could give a third option. That option would address the traffic volume increase by the new homes going in and any of the industrial traffic. I would even like to see the council consider restricting large haul trucks to not use Country Way. Go over to Long Valley or use the landfill. So that's really where I'm at on the whole thing. But the other point I would really like to make is this proposed change in zoning pulls 42 acres out of your open space and puts it into the medium to high residential. I calculated that the number of cars, just the increase in the change in zoning is about 1,200. Now, I'm making the assumption that the property lines go to the middle of the road, and I use the high-low of the density for each zoning area when I got there. I was kind of a forensic accountant, and I think I've done my numbers right. I would maybe like to meet with Drew to validate my numbers if possible. So my question is, how will the council address the traffic issues? Okay. I have other additional concerns about this change in zoning, again, related to the traffic issues. Washington Dam Road is a 2-lane road. It's considered a major collector. Or is that the right term? Not collector, or
That works.
There's a collector and there's the other term. What is it? Okay. Anyway, part of it's all 2-lane also. And it does connect to the parkway, but there's going to be a huge traffic issues out there. We don't want to be the victims of having to deal with all that unless the road structures support it. It's already mentioned there's a probability of between 6,000 and 1,000 residences, which I agree with, so maybe my other numbers are okay. And I also had a point I've already mentioned that the center support of that bridge is already compromised. And I think I already mentioned a concern about the engineering, that somehow engineering done by D. Atkins Company has been lost. I do have the master plan for Washington County's transportation. That's where I found out about the Purgatory Parkway. I didn't even know there was a name for it. But that goes from Long Valley, connects probably into the Country Way Road, and then travels on over to SR9. Also, a point I would like to make is this medium to high density zoning includes mobile homes. That was not mentioned before. I have a concern in mobile homes. There's only a few in this city, and they date back probably before 1970. And I don't know if that's, I don't put down a person, but I think that's an issue that needs to be a concern, but maybe not. I don't want to be labeled as a naysayer on everything. I do want to, maybe my own point here is to improve the process in my living environment and those around me. Okay, that's concerning traffic. The big concern there, and I think that's the biggest issue that needs to, in my opinion, needs to be addressed before we get any zoning in place and approve a subdivisions going in here. The other issues, I said, it's actually this, even with the change, the zoning is not even in compliance with your current general plan. According to the general plan, and I'll quote it here, in order to avoid conflicting adjacent land uses, the general plan proposes gradual transitions between densities throughout the city. Basement densities are generally proposed to be no more than one category higher or lower in density. Currently, you're jumping about 2 or 3. Here's your list, okay? We're starting here with medium density, and the ones across the river are up here on the top 2. So you're not in compliance with that. So there's a problem to be solved by, okay, let's change that density to, put some more steps in it, reduce the high density, whatever you decide. But it needs to be more consistent because everybody across the river are Ag 1 plus minimum 1 acres. Everything on Country Way is 1 acre or more. Everything down the road is 1 acre or more. Everybody on the other side of the river. And I should also note that all that open space up there is river bottom. It could never be developed. In fact, I think that borderline, I hope, is the high water mark for the federal high hazard zone. I had to remove part of my home or push it back so that I wouldn't have to prove that I was going high water coming by me 35 feet above the river bottom will affect somebody in Mesquite. I mean, that's the code. That's what you guys are living by. So I don't know. Developer may find out that he can't develop there. I've also been informed by, I don't know who the authority is, that if you look at the line between the open space and the medium density area there, that riprap that was installed is no longer valid for flood zone. I don't know. That thing needs to be, your developer would need to verify whether or not he can even build there without doing some additional abatement. Let's see. Well, I've already mentioned the change of 42 acres, and that impact alone almost doubles the density of houses and cars. So I would recommend the city council reject this change, go back to the drawing board and say, hey, developer, we need to have some answers of how we should address the traffic issues out here. Because you've also got schools, fire departments, parks, chapels. I mean, that many people is going to support quite a number of businesses. So the developers might have to carve out maybe some pieces for that. I don't know how you work that piece of it. I know in my experience in dealing with banks and developers that the governments require the developer to give them land for libraries, parks, retail space, etc. So I don't know. Again, I'm in the middle, not well informed on the process overall, but it just seems like we're a little ahead of the game here because of this particular geography. It needs to be addressed more completely and fully so that me and my neighbors will cheer for you next election. Okay, I've said too much.
Oh, thank you very much. Anybody else?
Greg Savage, resident of Washington City here. I would just want to say I 100% support everything that Steve had just said. I think he's done a lot of work towards this that you folks may not have found out if he wouldn't have done it and brought it to the table. So fantastic job by Steve. Number two, I'm in the home building business too. I'm not technically a developer, but one thing you do have to take into consideration, since I live on Washington, Country Way, there is a watershed that comes right through here that is phenomenal during the summer rains. And I swear to you, every house that gets built there will be wiped out. It's amazing. So I think there needs to be some look in upstream, since these are open areas out here. There's a lot of things that I see that somebody else might not. And the main thing for me to come up is to support Steve 100%, and then bring that to your attention too. There's some serious flash floods. Whether or not you care or not, I see them all
Can
the
you
time.
show us where you're
Yeah, I
seeing
can.
the water flows?
I can.
So we live here, and this is a pretty low area. Of course, they built the road up. I don't know how I don't know. I mean, maybe 10 foot tall. The watershed comes from this direction, and this whole deal right here becomes about a 4-foot lake. And it just happened this last summer. It was amazing.
Did it happen during the
summer
water
months.
the last couple of
Summer
weeks?
months, it actually happened. So, do you guys see it? Did you see it, Steve? So, yeah, it kind of comes from the previous property that we talked about the high, the last one. It comes from that direction, and I swear it is amazing to watch. So, I've seen it in 4 years. I've seen it 4 times. Twice last year, and then we had kind of a drought. But there's another thing you need to look at if you're home there. They had some trouble downstream.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Dean Shaheen. So to go back to Councilman Turek's statement is I know that Plum Development just would love to just buy this property for Countryway to just have a great open field on the other side, right? I'm just kidding. But I recognize, obviously, they want to do some things on the property. So to go back to what Steve said, and if we go back to the other one, Drew, can you change that, or does it just where it currently is and what Mr. Carter had said on there, just under the parameters of, is it a CPD, is what TCD, and what Steve said, just in the gradual change from these RA1 lots and these 5-acre agricultural lots transitioning into even medium density throughout that whole thing is more consistent with what the plan says versus going from taking out some of that open space and just hitting all of that with medium to high density. And just, I think that, I guess my point would be, I like what you said, and that they can come in and plan some of those things and keep it in conjunction to where we're currently at, and have some voice of opinion from the council in making all of that, rather than just jumping it to a straight high density. And I think that would at least go with the flow a little bit cleaner. And once again, I recognize they want to, capitalize on their investment, but also at the same time, I feel like owning my property, I have the right to do the same thing and recognize that, hey, we just overfill this area, then goes back to schools, to churches, and all of that. I mean, where are we going to have all of those items if we just fill everything in with a house arm's length away? So thank you very much. Appreciate all you do. Boy, I tell you what, I come to these things and think, man, how do y'all do these uncomfortable moments night after night? So thank you very much.
Thanks.
You heard there's an election coming up. We'll keep talking.
Saying it might be worth recognizing, and I'm not arguing for one plan or another, but the open space is transitional. Okay, so it doesn't just jump from yours right into high density. There's transitional with the open space. Maybe, I mean, the discussion's good. Maybe not enough. Maybe it could be more, but there is some transition. Okay.
Shoot. I agree with everything they said. Brent Bassett, Countryway. I'm not opposed to yellow, but that'd be a little forethought. And I think you guys will do it. Where did you come up with the 85-foot road? Now you're cutting into my property. Wasn't it a 75-foot road at first? And you made us out there to measure them roads? Yeah, that's what I was. Didn't you come out there and our property pins where mine was back at curb and then mine was out in front of that a little bit? Okay. 'Cause you just scared me when you said 85, and I'm thinking, whoa, now wait a minute, where's that coming from?
Thanks,
All right,
Brent.
thank you, guys.
Okay, Brent.
Just wanted to clarify the 85. This was originally master planned as an 85, and if council remembers 3-4 months ago, we did an amendment to the transportation master plan. We actually reduced this down to a 66, and we included that Purgatory Road in that amendment. That coming in as an 85 and tying in with the Purgatory, this will tie into it. Reduce the need for it to be the 85, so we reduced it to the 66.
Okay, thank you. Could you mention the structure of the bridge for a minute too?
The structure of the bridge is fine. It actually had a bridge inspection last summer. UDOT comes down and does all structures. They did an inspection on it. There's some very minor things that need to be done, some grouting on the ends of the bridge, some debris cleanup around the bends. That might have been taken care of with the project that we've had out there. So structurally, it's sound. Plans being lost, actually, the engineer that designed that bridge, he closed his business down, went to work for UDOT, and so I'm sure we can still get plans. It's just it would take time to get a set of plans. During construction of the bridge, Public Works was out there constantly inspecting what was being built, knowing that eventually it was going to become a city-owned bridge when the developer developed and deeded the roads and everything over to it.
We have something in the copy of inspection reports that is informative.
The inspection reports, I mean, this was
Maybe not detailed enough
not
to make
real
up for the loss of
detailed.
the plan.
The engineer on the project the engineer was out there. They actually had an inspector daily out there. That was all day long on the project.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
was given
but we
it
did
was-
have an inspection, did you say, just within the last 6 months?
This last summer, it was
Last
inspected
summer.
by UDOT.
Okay.
It does have a UDOT bridge identification number.
How often does it have to be inspected?
They come down, I believe, at least every 5 years. Might even be sooner than
Yeah,
on their
got it.
schedule. They contact us, we go out with them. They do all of our bridges in the city, any box culvert that's over 25 feet in length. So we have a few of those that have to be inspected.
Thank you.
Greg Savage again. I spent about a day of my time trying to find inspections on the bridge, and I did. I found one of the highest members at UDOT, and they've sent me every single inspection and the weight capacities and everything. So that bridge is 100% legal. If you simply have a number on that bridge, it's gone through everything, all of the requirements. So it was good for me to find that out myself. So I have them somewhere.
That's
I appreciate
tough.
you
That's
sharing-
not easy to
I
do.
appreciate you
Hey,
sharing that.
I'll tell you what, it was a 8-hour day, and,
Yeah,
the,
I'm
and the
sure.
lady was super helpful.
That's a
She was
labor of
fantastic.
love right there, yeah.
I had to go from person to person, and she was very helpful to me. So I have them. I didn't necessarily save them once I knew that it was a legal thing, and I do think they inspect them every 2 years. So I'm good on that deal.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else?
Steve Martin, just a quick follow-up. My hearing wasn't good enough to really follow the comments concerning the bridge inspection and so forth. However, I have photographic evidence that the riverbed is below the center support. Observed it on a low water last summer, picture of it. So, of course, since then, the water's way up on that center support. So whoever inspected it did not catch that. So I checked that inspection.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hi.
Adam Allen again. I'd just like to get up and address some comments that have been made, address some of the concerns, some questions about the PCD versus the PUD. Right. Just kind of what the thinking is behind it. And, we found the old PCD, revived everything. There were some kind of weird things in there, some very like wetland, wastewater stuff that was going on, kind of,
You still have flexibility.
And so then the other, right, we'd have to amend it and bring it back in and bring back forth, right? Yeah, and so the thoughts behind this is the developer he does want to come back as a PUD, right? And come in and carve out smaller parcels and then put in some like pods. They're unsure of what's going to sell, what's going to be going on. It is fairly close to the landfill, especially once that line that we've put in right there is where, you go up Landfill Road and then you're pretty much right there looking at the landfill. And so their big major concerns with that is, am I going to be able to sell a house? What is it going to be able to sell as I go throughout there? Some of the other things that have kind of been brought up, like trails, helping out with things with the city and the development. Barry's here. We've just gotten him an easement, and we're in the current getting him an easement for the trail that's going through that way, all the way along the bottom of the property there. That piece that's kind of carved out right there in the open space is going to be a sewer treatment plant that we're going to, the developers working with the city to get them the property for. And so we are, trying to plan some of these things to help out. We are going through the process with FEMA to make sure that we are outside of the floodplain, that anything like that needs to happen, that any of the floodway issues are being taken care of as far as the drainage. And when we understand there is a very large drainage that comes down from there, pretty much from every single hill, everything that comes off the landfill comes out through that industrial property, comes through the ONP property, comes through there. And so by working on the industrial property at the same time, we're going to start mitigating some of that water and getting it out of the areas as it comes through and work through all that as well. As far as how many houses
of the flood waters, the low waters that they're talking about.
Which low waters?
Well, they were saying a couple of them mentioned that they've seen water sitting out in some of the areas that you have medium density.
Yeah, so we're aware that I'm aware that this area right here is a low spot, and all of this water from here travels there, and all of this water from here travels there. We develop this out in specific ways. We start burning that water, and there is water that sits here because it is a low spot. They built up, the original owner built up around this edge, and then left it lower in the middle. So it does create an area in there where water gets in, settles in. That'll all be mitigated, taken care of.
Sounds like a nice area for a park.
Or pond. Lake.
Yeah,
Park.
a community,
My
community
retaining-
fishery.
Retaining.
So, just to kind of fill you in kind of on the thought process of why we were doing it differently than the PCD, so we could come in on smaller chunks and kind of work that way. The current plan is what they have is to actually, and I know obviously that doesn't matter because once you zone it and general plan it, is to continue with the same product they want here, they want to sell up there, but they're afraid it's not going to. So that's why they want the flexibility in the future. If they can't sell that stuff as you start looking up and actually looking at the landfill, then they want to be able to maybe go to a higher density type product that would sell. So
Help me. I'm a little confused why you would go from a PCD to straight zoning and then back to a PUD.
this is,
Okay.
and yeah, so, yeah, and so with our last go around with the PUD, we want to make sure that if we do have the opportunity to go to a higher density product, we want to make sure that the proper general plan is underneath it, moving forward. That way, that way wouldn't be big of an issue.
And what about the sewer treatment plant you mentioned?
Yeah, that perked my ears too.
Sorry. I'll let Mike handle that one.
So with the development of this property, the development of the Long Valley property, we've been looking at how we're going to sewer that area. One of the things we're looking at is a small package treatment plant. Otherwise, we would have to actually dig a line in and replace, basically go through all of the roads out in the field, the main roads, all the way out to Stone Cliffs to bring another transmission line to be able to take the capacity of this development. We've had a few conversations with the state, and originally this area here, Sunrise Valley, was going to be a wetlands treatment system. Their big problem was, and it was very intriguing, it actually got all the approvals from the state, but they could not get a discharge permit to the river because St. George has all the permits. We talked with the state. They agreed that they could give us a discharge permit to the river. But we also looked at this as a reuse source for the pressurized irrigation, the water out of the tree.
Okay, so we're looking at, gray water, not.
Yeah. So, but that's one of the things we're working through is how do we sewer this area for the least cost? And it's looking like that a small package treatment plant's going to be our best bet.
Where does the fresh water come in from? Culinary.
We've got lines out, well, actually down this road, there's a 60-inch and a 36-inch.
They're good now, yeah.
So yeah, that dirt road right there is pretty much going to stay right there because of the water lines that are in that road.
It's my understanding too that one of the reasons we're looking at the treatment facility as well is because by placing the treatment facility there, which is the low point, that we actually, it's more than just Sunrise Valley, because don't we have to lift currently in some of the areas?
Yeah, so basically from Sand Hill Drive, just up from my office, that's our break point. Anything else going east, we can't sewer. They're all on septic systems. So basically from that Sand Hill Road, everything will flow back to this treatment facility. So that whole area from there out would go to this treatment facility. In the meantime, we will put in a lift station, and we have lines laid in up to 1900 East, and we will pump to that, but we only have capacity of 600 units in that line. So that would, after that 600, we'd have to actually upsize our lines to.
So is Countryway on septic tanks?
Yes.
Which
They do have-
apparently you can put in you can put a septic tank cleaning facility in an I-2. I'm sorry, I read the.
Right next to the SOB.
Yeah.
Oh, well then we don't need it. So
No,
that
thanks
answers
for
your
that
question.
planning.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else?
Were you
No.
done? You covered everything you needed?
I'm done unless you all have any more
Any
questions
questions?
for us.
Oh, I did have one. Thank you for reminding me. Somebody mentioned mobile homes.
We don't plan on doing any mobile homes. I guess that might be in the zoning, but I don't foresee that being a.
That's a federal designation by law. We establish that federal law typically protect those designations.
Huh. Well, they don't do a very good job of protecting from hurricanes. Seems like they always.
I figure if we put in a,
Or mobile homes.
if we get too many mobile homes though.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I'll just touch on that. That's an option they can pick. Doesn't mean you have to approve it. So it's not, proving this like this is just, it allows the medium high density
based on the
designation
density
allows mobile home and R3.
Okay.
So if they bring you a mobile home park, you could say, no, I don't think so. You could deny that zoning just because you don't think that would be appropriate there. So,
I worry about the hurricanes.
yeah.
Tornadoes. I guess it's tornadoes. that always-
tornadoes.
Well, that's the city. That's the city. That's. Yeah.
You've been to hurricane.
Been to hurricane.
You've been to hurricane.
Or, yeah, I don't want to attract the tornadoes either. If we get too many mobile homes, they'll get here.
Any other questions?
No.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
Moved.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Granger, aye.
Ward, aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, road dedication. Consideration to approve a road dedication plat for Washington Parkway and Green Spring Drive. Mike Shaw and Council Starkey.
Like I kind of explain what this is and why it's separated into this and an agreement, which is really ancient, how we do this.
So this is the top of Green Springs, the low property up there. There's been some portions of the Washington Parkway they left out of some of their flats that they've had. So with this, we're coming in and cleaning those up, get those dedications done that should have been caught and done on those flats that were adjacent to Washington Parkway. So that kind of in a nutshell, that's what we're doing here. With the dedication plat and the agreement, as well as there was some on Green Springs.
This is road area that's built by the developer, and the city is now is taking possession of those.
Yes, partial of it. There's a bit of it because of the size of the road that the city has to pay for the construction of.
So is this road that's not built yet?
There's portions of it that are built. Green Springs is built. Portions of the Parkway are built. There'll be from here on, some of the center sections will be paid for by the city, and there was in your packet, there was included in there kind of an estimate on the cost sharing.
That are, like it or not, they're kind of tied to each other.
Yeah.
The agreement for completion. This is how we typically do it. Nor do we enjoy it, but what we have right now.
And then it's split. Am I split in it? Is it really split into two, or am I looking at two different dedications here?
It's split into two because trying to fit onto the sheet. You've got your exhibit A and your exhibit B with the green lines in them.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually on the agreement. So your dedication plat is the one that's actually two separate pages.
And help me understand the match line.
That's where the two would come together. So you've got the two. This is your dedication plat.
Mhm.
So that's where these two would tie together.
And
So
is
there's
there
a match line on your first page and a match line on your second page. That's where those two tie together.
the offset?
Reminds me of the
Well, that's
Red
what
Hills
I'm
Parkway
I'm
going through
curious
into
about that,
Prada.
It's called traffic calming.
It happened.
I think you could get some people to vote for that. So what is this staggering of the alignment of those roads? Why does it show that way on the map?
I'm not sure why it showed it like that.
Just to make sure you know there's a line there? Is it?
I would guess. Normally, when you have a match line, they don't do that. You actually have a little break line there, and they'll say match line, but not quite sure why they staggered it like that.
To cross the match line?
That's where the people go across to get to the hiking trails.
You just put a hiking trail right through the middle of it, the
Right
road?
through the middle of it.
Yeah.
Oh, that is,
There you
that's
go.
true. Yep. Drew brought up why it is. This is only half of the Washington Parkway. This half here is on Jim Rain's parcel. This is on Matt Lowe's. Right here is the property line. Now that goes over to Matt Lowe's. The section that's missing on this lower section here, that will come in, and they state that in there on their next phase of their the Matt Lowe's project, the Washington Vista. Throw it on there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. He'll loan it to you.
He won't let it's his. He's let us know it's his.
Yeah, he'd lose it on the green spot, yeah.
So this is Green Springs, Washington Parkway. This is the Washington Vista property line. The Grand Holdings, so Grand Holdings, there's the
It is odd that you were able to make that make sense.
He's had years of experience.
I'm never cease to be amazed.
Any other?
That was a complimentary way.
It was supposed to be complimentary. I had my doubts in the beginning that something would make that line make sense, and he made it make sense. Dang it! I'm impressed. I should not have doubted you. Well, not that I ever,
I'm impressed. You've come a long way since you got on council. Well, I guess
Let's
I'd be
lay it
more
all
careful.
out tonight, shall we?
I'm not going there.
Wishing Jeff would catch up.
We need some love in here or what?
It's Valentine's Day.
Is there any more
almost.
discussion?
Yeah, any more discussion on this item?
Well, so I'm still, Washington Parkway and the road coming through there. I realize this is just a plat section of this, the road dedication. I'm getting increasingly nervous about. So the Washington Parkway is fine. The problem is it's going to tie in to the Northern Corridor, and I just have this fear that we're going to take traffic from our neighboring cities and we're going to run them down Green Springs Drive and right into Exit 10, one of our biggest traffic problem areas, and it horrifies me that we're going to. I mean, honestly, if you leave it that way and you only do the Washington Parkway and it comes over, you help your citizens, you flow some traffic out there. It's when you help your neighbors, and the way we've put that road in there, I think we're creating more problems for Exit 10 and that congested area down there.
I don't know that it will help you at all, but with running the models that we have, the MPO models for our traffic and our future traffic generation, the model actually shows with building of the Washington Parkway is going to actually reduce the traffic on Green Springs and the traffic at the Green Springs Exit 10 intersection.
With the traffic after the Northern Corridor
Completion
is
all
in,
the way through.
which is fine. But even in talking to UDOT officials at the open house for that, they wince because I've seen the traffic study numbers, and that's kind of what they're leaning on. It's not a great increase; it's minuscule, if anything. But your UDOT officials are kind of it's gonna add more traffic to. And it was a little bit of a flippant comment by one of them at that open house, but that makes more sense than the data from the study does to me, because I can see people coming across there. Why would they go? You have so many places of business, high traffic places of business, right there off of Exit 10. Why would they continue to come down, either go Main Street or Exit 13 until Exit 13 is fully fleshed out? But it's still not gonna. It's not going to compete with what you have at Exit 10 and below Exit 10 and that surrounding area. If we had some way of mitigating that, the
only thing I would think, I certainly can see your point you're making. The only offsetting to that may be that your Green Springs people that instead of using that intersection would begin to use the north side of that. So you offset by people that are coming, offset by people that now change their travel routes going north instead of coming in and doing it.
If you talk,
to me, I see it as simply an offset.
Yeah, if you talk to the Green Springs folks, they say, "Why would I ever go north?" And I said, "Well, I guess if you're going to Salt Lake." Well, I do it occasionally, but you're not.
A lot faster.
It's not the sense of the community that they're going to start heading the other
Yeah,
direction.
most people don't until you build it, and all of a sudden they use it, and it's like,
And I can see that. I can see, but my concern is this Northern Corridor coming across there and traffic, because I really believe it will increase traffic. I mean, the whole area is geographically bound by the roads we have. For crying out loud, we're using I-15 as a commuter to go from one half of the city to the other, from one city to the other.
Northern Corridor, right now, I'm not so sure you're going to see it.
You're doubting the Northern Corridor.
Well, you'd think that he and I have been talking, but we haven't. But you know how I feel about it. Great concern for
Just
what's
for the
going to
mere fact
happen
that
to
the
a
legislation
residential
that started
area.
there died with the change of Congress.
Well, they're dual routing this, and you've got some of the federal agencies. How does that work? Mike can help me out with that, but that they're not just waiting for that legislation,
No,
that
they're
land
trying-
swap.
There's trying some other, I mean, there's different ways to try and achieve it. Their legislation was a bigger hope because that's the easiest. The other one is lots of hoops and the right people and.
But they're starting to get people lined up on that. They have,
And it may happen, it may, I'm not, I would never say it's never gonna.
yeah.
All I know is when we agreed and signed that piece of paper, we added a paragraph that said that we were very anxious there be some mitigation for those homes that road will go right behind them. There's been no effort to do that at all. And we did put that in our agreement.
Now say that again. What's your agreement?
Just saying that we were supportive, okay, and when we did that, we added a paragraph to that. And the paragraph said that we would, we were very anxious there'd be some mitigation for the roads going behind those homes. And there's, I mean, I go to all the meetings. There's been no effort to do that.
You're talking about the homes that where the northern corridor,
Right behind
Washington Parkway turns and goes south,
and
kind of down that
into
ravine
northern
there.
corner goes right behind those homes.
Councilman Belliston mentioned some things at that same open public comment that that road grade change will come down. There will be some wall structure in there as far as.
Well, and it's a Washington Parkway right now
It
that's
is.
going
It's
right
all
behind
ours.
those homes, but it will be the northern corridor if that goes in.
Yeah, but that was interesting to hear the way that would lay out. That at least made me feel a little bit better about
Well,
it.
one thing with the design on, that's we are looking at, especially that little stretch where
Yeah.
the homes are back there. We're actually looking at lowering the profile of that road down to get that road down.
Because you
below.
need to for the slope.
It helps with our slope, but it really helps with the sound with the homes, as
Agreed.
well as looking at sound walls for those homes up along there.
How does lowering it help? Because the sound goes up.
Not necessarily. I mean, it goes up, but it goes up. And so the further away you move the roadway, the sound will penetrate out further. So, because if you go down, that sound is going to come up like this here. So if those homes are right here and you drop this road like this, that sound's going to go like this. So it's going to push up and away from the home. So it'll reduce it right by the homes. So that's one part of the thing that we have to do with Washington Parkway is that sound study. And
Sure.
sound mitigation on it. And that's where they're working through that now. With,
Is that part
what
of
we're
the
doing.
environmental assessment then?
It's
Or is it-
actually part of the design they have to do, regardless of any environmental, they have to do that with the design.
Well, short of moving the road, that's the most promising thing I've heard from. But that's really just those 5 houses up there.
Right.
Well,
Well, there's that are right.
It starts
up
to
against
move
5
out
of
away
7
from those other
right.
homes at an angle. And there's those 5 that are it's really right in their
Now,
backyard.
Now, and this road was master planned, the water line was in before that subdivision was even planned up there.
Well, that
Before
was part of the
anybody could
discussion.
have even
Yeah.
bought up in there,
There's
that
a-
road was planned.
Now, some of the people there, you've heard it, a lot of the discussion is they were given wrong answers. They feel like they actually did some due diligence, still didn't get some correct
But
answers.
the fact of the matter is they had a dirt road behind their house with a big cut with fire hydrants placed there. That's my argument is, what did you think was going to happen?
You have hydrants on that, or how long they've been there?
Oh, 4.
it's like building a house next to a bridge.
Unfortunately, I would have, when we master planned it, I would have loved to have been able to build the road, and then we'd never have the issue.
Yeah, well, if
Yeah,
money
and
if
they-
money
and
was
it-
no option,
In
right?
the course of all that time, there's never been an approved northern corridor either. And so, was it?
Well, I think as far as this is concerned, and again, the significant part for us here is this is Washington Parkway at the moment. I realize that there's some, well, if we do this, again, I talk a lot about the slippery slopes fallacy a little bit. But the problem, the concern we've got is we got to have another outlet. And this is the outlet. We don't have another outlet that's being plopped down right now, any place up there. And having dealt with traffic for a number of years, I always refer to traffic like ants. You stop a trail of ants, and those ants are going to find the closest and the best way to get around that. So if milepost 10, I can tell you this, if milepost 10 continues to be problematic, which it will be, I agree with that argument altogether. You will have people who will make choices with regards to their traffic flow to avoid the problem. And you watch that all the time. You can hover over it and watch new roads. There's a reason why people are taking the farm road around Nichols Peak to get to Merrill, even though it's the most horrendous road there is. It's because they're the ants that have found that new path to avoid even just a mile or two. So I think the concern we have is that we have to deal with Washington Parkway and another outlet. We
Well, I get that, and they're gonna take the different route. It's just the fact that they're cursing the planner the whole time that they do it, you know?
Yeah, so that's, I guess, I mean, I know all of your concerns with regards to the northern corridor, but, you know, of course, our concern at the present is we have no other outlet right now. This is the outlet that's been on the books for a long time, so this dedication is still important.
Well, it is, but we're getting further and further away from an opportunity to make any type of, I'm not sure either, and I guess that's what, I mean, I realize we're pretty far into this, but I just got here.
So they're developed, so their subdivisions approved, they have to have an access to it. We can't change the subdivision, they've got to bet right into that. The fact that they have to have an access to it for the public to get to, that's our requirement of them to get it there, or otherwise their subdivision doesn't work. And we can't do that because it takes away the right. I mean, whether in the future you adjust things, because then you have to come in and maybe pay to realign and stuff, but at the time that they have lots out there approved, those at least are a vested right to, and we required it unless we come up with a different way of getting the roads to what bound the roadways that we see there, which are the lots out there.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm caught in this. I realize there's little we can do there, but I would like us to take a look at, you know, if that northern corridor comes through there, and then again, you're up against the traffic studies that they've done, say, almost seem to deny what seems obvious to me, and I hate to question engineers, although
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I just want to hit a couple little points here. So on the model, one thing that's in the model is that they look at jobs as part of that model, and they actually look at where people are going and why they're going, but they're also looking to the future. So part of that model looks at exit 13 as being a major commercial center. So I think that's part of it.
That would change.
That's part of it, that they say you're not going to get the people coming down Green Springs. If they're going to go shopping, they're probably going to be heading maybe to exit 13. And yes, it's going to move traffic going from the north to the south or the east to the west.
Well, I mean, that's true. It affects it.
So people coming from the north that live in Santa Clara Islands, I think they will use this. They definitely will use it. As, you know, as that bypass.
I'm afraid they'll come, because Santa Clara Islands, if you're not gonna come across that road and come up to a grocery store or whatever ends up at exit 13, but you might come across there and go down to Costco, because Costco represents something that you would actually travel for from another city.
We need to get Costco at 13.
Well, but again, I think some of the assumptions that they have to use in order to get that in place.
But you know, it could be a Sam's Club that goes up to 13 or something like that.
Well, but again, the could be's are.
The challenge that all the councils always face all the time.
Rivals could get from Costco and then they would come at all.
Yeah.
And we'd go there.
That's right, then Susco there.
One of the challenges.
I'm fine with that.
One of the challenges and dilemma, of course, you're facing is a dilemma and challenge the councils face all the time. In these very long, processed, developed projects, you represent one portion of it, and sometimes it is frustrating because you think, well, if this would have happened just 5 councils ago, and 4 councils ago, and 3 councils ago, and 2 councils ago. So, I mean, I think Councilman Ward's point. I mean, we're pretty deep, and I'm not sure what other opportunity sits there with the Washington Parkway. And again, I'm trying to narrow on the Washington Parkway right now because that's the only thing we rightfully control.
Agreed.
And so, you know, from our concern, there is already huge investments in this right of way that, again, wish that they might have been different, but they've compounded over the years to where this is at. So what we see it be a challenge for us is to say, well, I'm not going to accept the dedication because, you know, I'm afraid of what it might represent. You know, I think before we make that decision, we would have to determine, well, number one, what is that other option? And two, how feasible is it?
Well, and I agree.
And that's
So I
a pretty
can
lengthy
lament, I can
process.
lament other people's decisions as far back as they can. The problem is if something isn't done now, if we don't take a look at it now, then we lose out on this opportunity, and this might be the last. If there is any way to take a look at any possibility of diverting traffic or keeping traffic that would come across that northern corridor and coming straight down through exit 10, I'd like to pause and take a look at it. Even if, we bang our head against the wall for a while and realize that, yes, there are some options, but they're not great, and we have to hold our nose and go past it. But you never get now back.
Well, and I just don't know how deeply in bed we are with the Northern Corridor, folks. Because I don't know why we have to allow the Northern Corridor to hook into the Washington Parkway there, and why we can't say it has to go higher and hook in further.
And that,
Well,
and
you're up
that's
against-
actually still an option. So one of the things that
Oh,
we've
really?
done, and we've been very hard on this, and I've had a lot of pushback on it, is we've always, and the council back in, I think it was 06, adopted a cross section for the Washington Parkway. And that's 22-foot landscape median, very large landscape median. We were a very large corridor, but with a lot of amenities landscaping on it, very large shoulders that I think are 60-foot shoulders or 40-foot shoulders with meandering trail system and a power corridor on the other side. But we're also allowing accesses in at key points. I mean, they're limited accesses. What they wanted us to turn this into was a Southern Parkway. They wanted us to basically put that in as a divided highway with no access. And, we dug our heels in as a city and says, we are not doing that. If that's what you want, you need to move and build your northern corridor. This is Washington Parkway. This is what we are building here.
But it
It's going to be a
connects into
lower
it, so-
speed road. They wanted a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. We're going to be probably, I think we're looking at a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit through here.
So
But to
are we too far down the road to, at some point, if there is a Northern Corridor, to say, we're not hooking it in right there, you're going to have to go higher and hook in further?
I don't know that we have the option to tell them they can't hook into our roads.
Why not?
But they can't hook in, they would never ever hook in their divided
Our
highway.
property.
So it'll go from a divided highway into a 40-foot.
And I don't know what they're planning on that. I don't know if they've stepped back and I don't think they have stepped back and gone to our cross section on it. I've had a lot of kickback about our accesses that we're allowing. Oh, you can't allow those. I'm going, well, then we are. That's what it is.
Well, and
It's not an
well, I'm of
expressway. We're
I'm of
not
two
building an
minds of that.
expressway.
In one way, as we shorten that and we neck it down, I almost feel like people are going to say, well, let's get off here. Road ends. Let's get off here. Let's run right down to exit 10. If
But a lot of
if
what
it's
we're
not-
doing,
if it's
a lot of what we're trying to do with this roadway is traffic calming. Trying to calm the traffic, slow the traffic, not make it a raceway for people.
Well, and if we're
like an
doing that for
interstate highway.
Washington City, then let's not let them turn it into an alternative for the Northern Corridor that goes right down Green Springs if they want to, in order to
Yeah.
get to Costco more directly.
Right now, I think what the plan is, is they're gonna just do a 2-lane road. It's a 2-lane with no
But
median.
that's not the
With no
number of feet they're talking about taking into that corridor. It's not a 2-lane highway.
Well, UDOT's doing the environmental on that, and UDOT always does a 500-foot corridor for the environmental study. Doesn't mean they're gonna take the 500 feet, because that road has to shift back and forth when they get into design. The Southern Corridor was the same scenario, and that road shifted a lot from that original environmental study. And I think that's what they're doing right now, is trying to identify a corridor to do the environmental study on, that they can fit their roadway in without having to revisit the environmental
There are
study.
certainly some who think that working on that frontage road and hooking it into Red Hills Parkway is a much more reasonable, less costly alternative to getting people over to the the other side of the county. I think that's a reasonable discussion. But as soon as we turn this road, ours, Washington Parkway, into the northern corridor, well, it's never felt well with me, and I don't think that's changed for me. I appreciate that y'all listen to that and stuff, but I'm not convinced that it's not going to ruin some neighborhoods.
Well, and yeah, that's the problem is that you don't know where, if the northern corridor is going to come through, but boy, if it does, a no access highway turning into our neighborhoods up there.
Well, the other thing is on that section, there will be no access no matter what they do, because it's in the habitat. There won't be any development up there that needs access.
Until it gets to Washington.
Until it gets to Washington, we're out of the habitat.
And then we're the first place to jump off the highway and backtrack if they need to.
But we'll also have a connection to Main Street. We'll have a connection at Fairway, Portis Rock, and one in Rio.
Well, I appreciate your defense of our accesses, because if we didn't have those accesses on those roads, we would only be the entrance to the northern corridor. We wouldn't be doing anything.
Well, we got so much development that's still to happen on this north end.
On the other side.
Right. So what is the other alternative if the northern corridor doesn't connect into the Washington Parkway?
There's been so many iterations over the years. The northern corridor has been around since I've lived down in southern Utah, over 25
Well, it's been here
years.
as long as I've ever visited here. Yeah.
So, I mean, they've had corridors coming in at Leeds and exit 16 and, there was the northern corridor, the great northern corridor, the greater northern corridor.
But I guess this is the first time I've ever heard anybody say that there was an option of taking the northern corridor any other place besides Washington Park.
Yeah, there's many,
Where would it go?
Not that's their number one, only one presented before the legislature right now. There's only one right now.
So I guess I'm troubled. I don't know where it would go, because at this point you're basically up at the turtle preserve, although they're going through the turtle preserve, but they're not presenting that and they're not working that angle.
They won't present it.
No, they don't want to
I've
complicate.
talked with the
They don't want to
county
complicate their
commissioner.
issue
No,
anymore.
They won't
and
even present two options. They presented one option.
They do, I can see it. It benefits other cities tremendously. But we don't really have a traffic issue going that direction.
Don't think?
Well, from
try exit 10.
Well, from the
Don't tell
top
me you don't
from the
have an
top of
issue.
Green Springs,
we
no,
don't right
we don't
now.
have. That's the top of our population. It's not a natural.
But right now
solution for
you're
us to go
funneling
up
everything up there, and all that growth that's going to continue to go up there, you're giving them no option. You're going to say you've only got one place, you're going to 10.
Well, it doesn't have to cross over to Green Springs.
That's the whole
to
thing.
be
The
a
argument
good
you're
option.
saying is they're going to bring everything to us, but I say, look at our residents. We're giving our residents options to get where they want to go.
For the other side of the gully, that's really true. For the Green Springs, it's built out. We don't need the Washington Parkway. For the other side of that gully,
Well,
Rio and those other 5,000
And you've
people
got a
that are
whole
gonna
lot
end
going
there.
up there.
We do.
Yeah,
Your
once
future
the-
is huge
well, I
up
can see
there.
your point.
And these
Councilman.
these roads, we're looking at it regionally. We're not looking at it
That's
as
the
a
whole
city
thing.
issue.
Oh, I
And we have
understand.
to, we have to look at things, especially these kind of roads. We have to look at them regionally. We talked earlier tonight about the Purgatory Road. That's a regional road.
Well, I understand that, and that's how I've always looked at this. Honestly,
Well,
the
you
problem
have
is I'm
to.
struggling with it. What's in it for us? I see your point. Once the Sitla area is fully built out, there is some
It's huge up there.
there's some purpose to go from
Certainly,
there.
You
But
don't have to come into town. They say, hey, we're going across the top and dropping down in.
Yeah, they're going up pretty fast.
Continue to compound. So for us, again, I keep trying to narrow this down to just what we need is an additional outlet.
Well, that's definitely is a safety factor, as an additional outlet for the.
well, I
police.
recognize that for that area because there are places on that Green Springs Drive, if you had an accident, you'd block people in. There's no other way.
You know, if you go along I think it's the east side of the golf course, right down that street before you get to exit 10.
Yeah, Fairway.
Yep, that's where I always go. Okay, that's where I always go, and I am waiting and waiting and waiting to get into the traffic on that frontage road now. We need a light there, but that's my sneak around right there, but there's no light. I wait forever to get in that traffic flow when I'm coming to council meetings, which is about 5:30, 5:45. It's a problem.
Yeah, Cactus or.
It's a good workaround, you know. It gets me under Main Street. I'll even do that sometimes if I'm going to Costco, but not often. But I'll do it all the time when I'm coming
That's
here.
our problem. You're going to Costco. I never go to Costco.
Well, it's
Can
kind
your
of
wife
become
say that?
onerous.
Yeah, my wife does it.
There's never a downtime on Costco anymore. It's
No.
they should move. We've told them that, but
All right. You're ready to make a motion or?
So just one thing to bear in mind, that this is tied to the next, to approval of that agreement, the next one, if you approve it, the approval has to be conditioned upon the next item being approved by the city council.
Because that's,
Without that, it doesn't lock in.
so ultimately, that next item is saying that we're gonna pay for some improvements to the road. Isn't that what?
What they're going to put in, specify
Yeah.
what they're going to put in, that they're gonna bond for it, how fast they have to do it, and that portion that we've committed to put in to.
Yeah, it's
But I don't think you use the term 7/4.
on the exhibit B, the ones with the green lines on them.
That's our recommendation to you guys, that by approving this, you condition it upon approving the agreement.
The dedication.
Then they both will be denied or tabled.
Why-
Put it that way.
Yeah, why would that be such a, I mean, because obviously in most of these, I mean, we would require this of our developers to dedicate.
That's why the agreement says everything we require them to do anyway. That's why
So, yeah,
they
so-
have to commit to those things in that next item, but they're on separate items, so we still have to see them separately. Oh, sorry, Councilman.
Correct.
I didn't. The question I'm understanding, Councilman, is why under normal circumstances?
No, we're up on
That's item-
8A. That's a different.
That's the.
Yeah, I'm
next
talking
one.
about normally when we would put this in, we say, here's what you have to design, here's what you develop, this is what you put in.
Yeah, normally it's handled when we're doing a plat.
Correct.
He's got left out. So part of this is getting it built after the dedication class. So there's nothing really that's really, this came from the developer, the agreement. It's what they wanted to put in, which everything's fine on it. It just, yeah, it just spells everything out that we normally require of them anyway. So there's a small portion of it that we are required to pay
So
for.
that,
which
so
we
that
would
basically
normally
is driven by them, it's not driven by
do.
us.
Exactly, this is driven by them.
We're at where we're at without.
Yeah, exactly, because we didn't get it the first time through. Any more discussion? I'll make a motion if there's.
Any more?
Not, Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve our road dedication plat for Washington Parkway and Green Springs Drive.
Anybody want to second that?
I'd make a motion that we table this until our next meeting, when we have a full house.
We didn't receive a second on the approval, so you have another motion which has been presented.
I'll second that.
Second one or the first one?
The second. Be consistent.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table till the next.
Well, let me be clear, is that I think there are two other city council members that ought to weigh in on this, and if we're gonna move it forward or not, maybe they need to weigh in on it.
Can I ask this question? What other option is there out there? What does by tabling get it? Is there another option to look at? Tabling we get to? Or do we just say, well, it gives us 2 weeks to? That's the question I asked, is what we achieve by table. I just don't see we have any other option. This is what it is. This is what's been approved. This is something that basically is cleanup for lack of a better term.
You have it at the moment, probably a better chance of passing it if you wait for 2 weeks.
If you're ready for a vote,
I'm ready for a vote.
with that, I will vote aye.
Right.
Granger, aye.
Ward, aye.
All right. Adopt till next council meeting.
So with that, Mayor, there's not any discussion for 8A. I will make a motion that we table that one also for our next meeting.
To be consistent, I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion. I have anybody discuss that? Not, I have a motion and a second.
Granger, aye with discussion. I appreciate how narrow our options are. I appreciate how critical it is. And probably I appreciate more the impact on a community that I'll probably be dead before this road's ever built. So, nonetheless, the impact's great. And I keep weighing it probably more than any other issue that we bring before the council is this particular one. So, but I think the rest of the council needs to weigh in on it too. So
I appreciate that somebody laughed at that comment. And this has been educational for me. There's points brought up here that I had not considered, so I'll use the time to good use. Ward, aye.
I hope, and if this vote becomes public, that it puts a little bit of pressure as per that document that we all signed to the Northern Corridor folks to continue to be a little bit more open to some options and to where they connect. I hope it does. I'm not very positive about that because I haven't seen any movement in that regard, and I continue to try to listen to see what's happening. So,
Okay, we'll move on to 8B, consideration to approve the Meritway reimbursement agreement for the stormwater impact fee credit.
Thank you, Mayor. You've seen several of these in the past. This one's a little bit different. There's several large storm drainages that run through this property. This is the property that would be west of the Maverick store and borders up against the old city yard. They're moving the dirt up there now for the RV park that's up there. That RV park is part of this parcel. Initially, when we laid a storm drain down 1100 East, that property owner put money into that project and received the credit on that the council approved. Now that he's in developing this, there's just another phase of that drain that has to go in, and we can't give him credit because he already has his credit. So we're going to do a reimbursement on this. Based on our master plan, the total cost included in our impact fee study was $279,329. There were several portions of this that, there's one portion of it that was on the other side of the interstate. So we broke this down by the footage in our plan and came up with the available amount that we could reimburse them. And in your packet as well, you actually have their bid And so the reimbursement would be for this would be $185,464, which we would actually write them a check for out of the storm drain impact fee account. This is actually in our budget, so it's a budgeted amount we put in. Any questions on that? It's
Well,
actually,
just so I'm clear, so the impact fee credits that they utilized on the first one was sufficient for all of their projects, so they
yes.
couldn't use any more credits.
Yeah, we couldn't give them any more credit. And this is actually a really nice project. It really helps us because we have water that's flowing across 515 up in that area, and it's a fairly large drainage. An existing project brought a 60-inch culvert up right behind the Bluff Valley townhomes. And it's just kind of an open, catches the water as the sheet flows across. A lot of times it might get diverted, and that's where we get some of our drainage issues when that gets diverted. This ties that drainage in to that drainage, and it gets all that water into that.
Can
Capture
you
all that water up there. So
can you run through that again while pointing at a map?
So I can actually.
Mike, while he's bringing that up, on our storm drain impact fee, do we collect that by the lot that's developed?
Plat.
By the plat?
We collected a plat.
So I guess the question I have is because the RV park that's going in, I'm assuming that's the parcel that's driving this.
It's the total parcel, the whole piece that Quality actually owns. He actually didn't sell it. He's leasing that parcel to the RV park. So you can see his parcel here.
I guess the question I had is the impact fee less because there's an RV park versus if it were to be homes going into there?
No.
Okay.
Because it's based off of the acreage.
Acreage, it has nothing to do with what goes on it, it's how many acres there are.
Which
Okay.
makes sense.
Now, we do
Yeah.
collect on the older developments that prior to us implementing the impact fee, and there's a few of those that we still collect on. Okay, so the parcel is this parcel right here. Now, there's a 60-inch culvert that comes out, and it ends, I think, probably right here. There's some big drainages that come across, some really big drainage that comes across right here, I believe. And a couple of smaller ones across that bring water from the interstate as well as the side of the interstate. And they just dump out on these grounds. We used to have a real big problem with water coming down through the city yard.
Into the neighbors, yeah, the neighbors down there.
But we actually built a dike and kind of a little detention basin where we could capture that water here. So with their project, and their RV park goes in about here over, they're actually capturing these drainages and piping it and bringing it down, tying it in here, and tying in everything that we need along this road here. So it really helps us with all these drainages here. Some of this actually would come down and actually gets over here onto the turf farm. So it helps us with some of that issue we were having over on the turf.
Cool.
So this is a great addition to our drainage system.
Yeah, because that's been problematic for a couple of, like I said, the residents this side and that Bluff View.
This has been a problem since I've been working here, depending on when we get the monsoons and we get the events. And I remember a few years back that are going to hit up over here. We had some real issues.
Correct.
We have, in the past 20 years, or the past 15 years, we made huge strides in our drainage system.
Okay, I'll move.
Well, so, sorry, before your motion, I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear on this. So you're crediting them back. Where's the number? What's the total credit that goes back to the developer?
So the developer, we will be giving them back $185,464.
And when was that? When did they receive the credit for that, or were?
So the credit they received on the property was actually
1100 East comes up.
1100 East. We actually had a drainage that came up and stopped about right here. They picked it up and we carried it all the way up the road here because we also up here have another large drainage that comes across right here. So Dean Terrace So they actually they paid for this. We gave them a proportional credit to what impacted their property, which in turn gave them enough credit for his whole parcel.
And so
these
now that
other
he's going,
improvements-
to do the improvements on those, then we need to
Now,
pay.
these additional improvements, now we can't give them credit because we've already given credit on this line, so we're just reimbursing them. And the $185,000, that's actually his actual bid that he got on the project, so it still was actually less than what our impact fee would have said we would have credited back, but that's been our policy. We pay maximum what our impact fee calls out, but what we normally only pay what the bid amount is. And we require them to get 3 quotes on a project so we can make sure they're being honest with us on the quoting that they're, or the pricing that they're using.
Otherwise, the city would.
Otherwise, the city would be putting the project.
But I suspect that would cost a lot more, and it wouldn't necessarily all be in the right places.
I don't know that it would necessarily cost more, but we're getting it now. This would not been a project that we would have jumped on right away. We would have done it when we'd have got enough funds built up to build the project. And we have a lot of pressing projects, but we have to prioritize them, and this isn't one of the highest priorities, but this really does help us.
Interesting. Thank you.
I did motion to approve the Meritway reimbursement agreement for the stormwater impact fee credit.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Ward, aye.
Do we
Granger,
want
aye.
to put in there a total on that?
Total of 185,464. Thank you.
Aye. Turek, aye.
Granger, aye.
Ward, aye.
Thank you. Bid awards, consideration to award the bid for a new sewer cleaner truck.
Thank you, Mayor.
For a minute, I was afraid you were going to say sewer treatment plant.
We'll wait until you're done.
I'm not sure how many eyebrows went up on that one.
We actually bid this out about 3 months ago. The bids came in extremely high, well over our budget amount. We went in, adjusted some of the items on the cleaner truck to try to get it down. We rebid it. We opened bids on Monday on this. We have been having quite a bit of talk in my department and some research on it. The low bid came in from Olympus Equipment on a gap back truck, which is a truck. I've heard of the truck. I've never seen it. I don't know of anybody that have operated them. But if you take into account, the trade-in amount, had one company come in with the trade-in amount. There was a 5-year buyback that was not included in our bid, but 2 of the companies included a buyback, which is nice after 5 years. If you look at our trade-in value, we were getting the $47,000 for a 5-year-old truck. These, we get a guaranteed buyback. That's only if we buy their truck. Going through all this, we're very comfortable with the gap back truck. We talked to actually South Davis Sewer District. They actually own 4 of them now. They say that's the only truck they'll own. The price on that is $363,116.73. They were not giving us a trade-in on ours, but at $47,000, we feel that it's more valuable for us to keep that truck and keep it as a backup truck. We actually just spent $20,000 on a repair. The truck went down. The actual pump on it went out, and the hydraulics that drive that pump went out. So we just barely got it on the road. It was down 2 weeks, and I was sweating bullets for 2 weeks because we have another truck, but it's for cleaning storm drain, and we can't intermingle the two. If we do, then we go through a big process of decontaminating that truck again. So what we've talked internally is we'd like to keep that truck as a spare truck, to be able that we can use 2 trucks if we need them. At $47,000, or we would look at going out on our own to try to sell the truck. But I think I'd rather just see us keep it in the fleet.
Well, you don't go through that again.
Yes.
Yeah.
We always have the ability to borrow trucks. We have a very good relationship with Santa Clara. If we needed a truck, they'd have had one over here during the flood events. They had a whole crew over here with their cleaning truck. So,
Research wise, what is a single engine PD versus a
okay,
single engine
good
fan?
question. So the single engine PD is a positive displacement pump. Fan pump is almost like our street sweeper. It's a big fan that creates the vacuum. Both very good trucks, but a PD pump has a higher lift capacity. It can lift from a lower elevation. And the only reason we need that is we have the Coral Canyon lift station. And our PD, the vacuum will do it, but the PD will do twice as fast. So we've had the issues where we've had to vacuum that out or pull that out with the trucks. And we've had Santa Clara's bring their truck over, which is a fan type truck. We can do 2 loads to their one.
So then,
And that's why we go with the PD. And then the single engine and dual engines, the twin engines, when you run a fan, you have to actually run 2 engines, one that runs the fan, one that drives the truck. With the PD, normally you have the truck that runs the truck itself plus the pump, and they run it off of a power takeoff on the transmission. So it actually, we like that much, much better. It works much better.
twin, so you like the twin engine?
It's single engine, because we have one engine to deal with. We don't put lots of miles on the trucks. We're servicing one engine.
So with the twin engine, it has its own separate engine that runs the vacuum,
Yes.
basically.
And these
versus the other
prices
one being
are,
the truck
yes,
itself.
these prices on the twin engines, the second engine is a gasoline engine, which just, they wear out very, very fast because those engines are running at top RPM for 8 hours a day. They're not moving up and down, where a diesel engine can take that, a gasoline engine, it really wears those. And they use a V10 Ford engine. Just because the horsepower, that has the torque and the horsepower, that's the only gasoline motor out there.
But on then all the,
And then they do that for emission purposes, because then they don't have to have that Tier 4 motor, diesel motor back there. And there's only one manufacturer that has a small motor that's Tier 4.
but then at that point, you're using that engine with all of the highway diesel air cleaning garbage that they have to put on them to do your
Right.
lift. But
Well, you use it on the other motor too. You still got all the emission stuff on that
oh, would you?
pony motor. Yep.
Oh, really? On the
Yep.
smaller.
Yep. Still runs depth, still has all the stuff on that auxiliary motor. And that's why they've moved to the gasoline and started running the gasoline motors, because they get away from having to run the DEF and the combing of the exhaust filters.
Which is crazy because that diesel's a cleaner.
Yeah, yeah.
So Mike, so which one are you, which is your preferred?
Yeah, so our preferred is to go with the Olympus equipment, the gas back, and it is our low bid at $363,160.
Does that one have the guarantee buyback? or-
No, that's my question.
Okay, so that was not part of our bid. We didn't require it. So we asked them, do you have the buyback? Normally when we bid, we're not going to ask them to add to the bid after we've opened the bid, but they actually come back. I actually have the email. They're going to include it in the contract, but they actually have a better buyback than the other ones. The other companies have an hour restriction, a mileage restriction. Theirs is a guaranteed 5-year buyback, 50%, and no deduction for mileage or hours. We have as many hours or miles that we want to put on it. So it's actually a better buyback than the other company.
That's good enough to make it worth my listening to all that truck talk.
Oh, Dan missed it. And these trucks, these are just as far as the purpose of these, because I've never cleaned out sewers. You're basically
You can come anytime.
I'm busy that day, but you're putting these down through the lines to unplug clogs. Is this regular
It's
maintenance?
Regular maintenance on the line. So we do 1/5, at least 1/5 of the city every year. You go and clean because it builds up stuff in the lines. So what it does, it has a high pressure water that goes up, and you turn some valves and it pushes the line all the way from manhole to manhole. Then you pressure it up to 2,500 pounds pressure on that water. And then well, it's got a reel that actually pulls it back. As you're pulling it back, it's got the vacuum that goes down the manhole. And as you pull that debris back, it sucks it up into the tank.
You know, the more you talk, the more I envy you, your job.
I was gonna eat this
You-
cookie, but now I'm not really.
Well, we do have our sewer camera trailer. You're more than welcome to come out and watch dirty movies anytime you want.
The what? I just gotta
Our sewer camera.
do the dirty.
Dirty
I
movies.
caught it. I finally caught up. I caught it. Okay.
Hey, one of y'all make a motion.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
still learning stuff, Mayor, about
Oh.
sewer trucks.
Oh, I got a lot I can teach you about.
Okay, did you get that number down?
What's the number?
363, 116.7.
Is that a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the purchase of the Gap Vax sewer cleaner truck for $363,116.73, and also includes a 50% buyback option in 5 years.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second.
I'm gonna vote aye, even though I feel like I got shortchanged out of some more information about the truck. It could've-
Mike, when it
could've-
shows up, will you get him down and let him?
Granger, aye.
Eric, aye.
I'm going to teach them how to run it. And by the way, this is actually surprised me. This is on a Peterbilt chassis.
Oh,
The
really?
rest of them are Freightliners.
Boy, I needed to know that.
Well, I figured that Councilman Ward was probably the only one that.
I got
Okay.
that. I got that.
Thank
This
you.
This
We're
is
gonna move on
payback for the
to
road discussion, I know.
anything to report from your assigned committees.
I forward you some
Yeah.
stuff from and they passed a bill on that affordable housing, which we need to take a close look at.
I'll report that we have met twice as a Zion to St. George Transit Authority Committee. It's been some interesting meetings. It continues to morph, for lack of a better term. So it's getting somewhat fleshed out. It's an interesting process. So it goes on. We meet again. Our next meeting's on March 19th.
Did they have a presentation at the Transportation Expo? I didn't make it over there this year.
I got there.
The UDOT was there, who was the driver on this. So I don't know exactly how much of a presentation was there, but it's obviously, I'm sure there was something.
There was one on transit. I didn't spend a lot of time there, but there was one on transit.
It's kind of an interesting because the modeling that they've kind of started, the path they've started is actually kind of a hybridized, for lack of a better term. It runs two buses of a commuter transit, so one stop in each city and back and forth as fast as you can go, basically. And it intermingles two buses that have stops multiple places within each city. So it's and they kind of.
Well, part of that's connected to this affordable housing bill, and I don't understand all the nuances of that, but there seems to be some transit issues connected to that too, so that might be helpful to us.
It's moving. It's a moving target. No question.
I'll keep you appraised as it moves forward. And of course, this is just a committee that's kind of fleshing out the direction it was headed, and hopefully still headed as a private public partnership. So we're bringing in a private company to help be involved with it. So, and of course, it'll come back to the MPO and UDOT through that process. This is just a subcommittee that's.
I rushed over here directly from the Chamber of Commerce Legislative Action Committee. That's a good group there. That's some neat stuff that they're working on. They're asking for our lists. If we have lists, and I'll probably kind of forward on to them the council or the League of Cities and Towns, some of their items there. But also if there's some legislative action that we think that the chamber would be interested in, they're interested in supporting us in some of those that align with some of their needs as well. So if you definitely an legislative session going, tax changes, lots of stuff there. So that's a good group. It's been fun to be with them.
Thank you. We can step right into that on Tuesday, can't we?
What's that?
We'll step right into that on Tuesday.
Yeah, that'll be a good segue into that. We'll be right up there. Still don't think we'll get as good of a tour as the youth council.
We're
In
not-
the past,
we're-
they've done a midnight tour. Maybe we can arrange something like that
Yeah.
for you.
We may not be as well behaved.
Maybe.
Anything else? Just a reminder, Monday, when we leaving?
Well, I mean, there was some discussion last night with respect to, do we want to leave earlier? I'm not opposed to that. I know there was some rumblings on that. Was that serious? We're also watching the weather, and right now it looks
good.
Okay. Yeah, it looks
They've
okay.
got 4
Well-
storms coming in.
Well, yeah, I think right now, and it's still a little early, I think we're kind of dodging them a little bit, but it's still kind of early. But if there is a desire to leave earlier than between 2:30 and 3, I mean, we're fine with that. We just kind of timed it that way to get us up there right around dinner time because the mayor buys us dinner.
My intention is to put in some work that day. I'd like to keep it where we're at, personally.
I'm
It's an hour to get from your office in Salt Lake, I think, to State Street. First morning, remember the first snowy morning?
Yeah.
Man, it doesn't look like we have anything like that this year.
Yeah, that was quite the storm we had. By the way, thanks for picking me up.
Thanks for letting me take the tour of that side of Salt Lake.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful side of Salt Lake out there.
So we'll just plan on between 2 and 2:30?
2:30 and 3.
Okay.
And that's why I say just give me a little time because I'll just stop and pick each of you up
All
at
right.
your house so you don't have to park a car over here.
Okay.
Where did this come from?
Denise.
That was Denise.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for the
Thank you for the
Valentine's.
cookie and the strawberry.
I need one more for my wife before I,
I have
go
a-
home.
I have a
'Cause I haven't got
roast.
anything for
I have a
tomorrow.
roast for everybody else though. If you,
We'll turn the times over to the city
Roast.
manager.
I thought they said a roast. I was all over that one.
I have a roast at the top all the time.
Just real quick, a couple of items. I have a number of items here, but let me just narrow it down to some things that I think that will be good for you to know about. We're anticipating the first council meeting in March to get our first report on the irrigation master plan. So just kind of prep you for that. So, and then again, we'll get an update, see when they want to give the next update. So that'll be good. That'll be our first one. We're looking at the, with regards to stormwater, we're looking at the end of, right around the end of March of bringing the cross sections to you to look at. They're working with Brio on the Main Street basin. Again, you're already updated on the SIPO. Again, the Main Street, I want to be clear that the Main Street, the development, well, let me add to that right now. So if once the council chooses a cross section, then I think we probably can even go to bid around April on Main Street. It's a little bit more complicated because of the utility lines, as you know, because we're going to be dropping that street. So we have to meet those dimensions. I will mention, though, that irrespective of all that, we probably will not have all the Main Street improvements done by monsoon season, but done monsoon season. So, but it's good progress for us anyway. We got a project in the Virgin River. One of those has been right around the Sunrise Valley Bridge. So some of the stuff that was being talked about tonight, we knew full well of, but it was their public hearing. So. And then Mill Creek, and that should be other areas, Mill Creek, and those should be done by the end of the week. Merrill Road, I think I mentioned this last night. We're anticipating bidding Merrill Road in March. There is an anticipated open house on March 19th for Milepost 11 at the community center. Washington Parkway, there's an open house. I didn't have the date on the open house for the Washington Parkway.
Just had
Oh, we just had that one. That's right. I didn't know if you had another one scheduled. So design, now depending on the vote of the council, that may have some impact on design work, but they're anticipating at the moment to have about 60% design review in March. We're starting to identify the roads, and we'll bring those to the council when we're ready for the spring maintenance projects. slurries and the work that they'll do on those. And typically, once those are identified by Public Works, we'll come and provide a map to the council, so you're aware of those as well. On the power side, I'm mentioning this to you because you'll see some work up there. We have a Green Springs Drive feeder line that's going up, and so the power department's met with the golf course and CSC. CSC will be doing some boring in the next couple of weeks. So I don't think we're anticipating really that there'll be a lot of disruption to the golf course. There might be some right along the edge, but that's
What are they boring for?
put in a new feeder line up through there. So I've kind of kept you updated on our fiber connections. These are a very good move for Washington City to get some of these. We've now connected with fiber, the Parkway, Sienna Hills, and Coral Canyon substations. So that fiber project is moving along. I mentioned to you last time we have a realignment of some poles and replacement of poles along the turf farm, the west side of the turf farm. Again, I mentioned that they kind of do this as you look down there. So we're trying to straighten that out. Mike and Rick have worked together with the Turners. Part of what the Turners requested was kind of a relocation of one of the drainage lines. I think Mike's completed that now, which means that now we've handed the Turners the easement for the power realignment, and we're just waiting for signatures. So, no, it'll just be more poles along there.
With the drainage.
Yeah. And the GIS mapping, I've mentioned we've been working on GIS. That's the one area with respect. Power's always been behind the other utility departments, but as you remember, we contracted last year to get that done, and they've been out in the field work. They've got about a week and a half of field work left, and then on our overhead, and then we should be, once that stuff's put in, and we should be in really pretty good shape with the power department. We've always been behind on the GIS mapping, so that's great. And then I think that's it. Jeff wanted just a second.
It's okay. So one might have imagined, or at least glancing over here and see the biting of lips and restraint that wouldn't be aware that there's quite a history and quite a lot of discussion has gone on with the bridge issue and the access and traffic over there. And so I just want to remind, because as I look at it, Council Granger, Council Turek, Mayor were here at the time when those citizens in the 8 lots out there appealed to the Ombudsman's office in 2016, 2017, that for the Ombudsman to issue an opinion that the city wrongfully allowed heavy traffic to go along in front of their house. Just so you know, and we met, I don't know, Mike, how many times? Numerous times, privately with every one of the landowners on top of the public meeting. That was our response to it, to the Ombudsman's office, to their complaint, because that supported the fact that we have a roadway there. It's got to be used for what it's used for. We don't just get to pick and choose once we take a road who we get to let use it. We hold it as a trustee for the public. So this lays that kind of out. This was just the modified version that council got copies of. And so Council Ward, the first part is only like 8 or 9 pages of the legal description. The rest of it is supporting documents. Council Granger, if you wanted another copy, I think you got them at the time, but I just want to make sure at least Council Ward has one in case you want to look at it. We have lots and lots more papers if you just want to read this too. So I just want to give it to you so you're aware of it. Council Ward, we've been aware of this. Now, not everyone that spoke tonight was a resident at the time. We had some tonight who were very active in it that entire time, and one wouldn't even have imagined that this has been discussed before. Yeah. It was discussed, and let me just, from a staff's perspective, let me just tell you how accommodating, so the staff is accommodating. These guys are really good with residents and stuff out there. But this council, the elected officials, were so accommodating in having these public meetings and on the record to discuss all of the issues that got brought up by their attorneys and go through, just so accommodating. It's also the time when we picked up the bridge also, so I was just telling the city manager that I was just looking at some of the things that you don't have to read, but I cut out about 200 of the pages Council Nice at one point, and he didn't talk a lot when he talked, man, he hit the point. At one point, he says, so what is the legal justification that we would give leniency for someone to have two accesses to their home simply because they built in a place that now they don't like traffic? I'm just not sure the legal perspective might be Council Ward in some way. Just like cuts into it, you're like, that's a pretty pointy. I'm not sure I have an answer to that. But at any rate, a lot of time was spent with that. And if you have any questions, let us know. But we certainly were gracious with them, I think, the council and the staff.
Yeah, I think the one guy in that orange hat was.
Shaheen.
Oh, Shaheen's been.
Yeah, he's been there through it
The
all.
other, the other guy.
They were the
The
main.
one that came up a couple times, one that researched the
Holiday.
bridge.
Yeah.
I don't know that I had seen him.
And the other guy was.
That's the first time the other one's come before us too.
Well,
That's the first time we've heard that their kids play in the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have on the record now, our kids play in the street. We expected to play in the streets and nobody ever used the bridge. And then you should build in there.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Okay. See y'all Monday. I think an adjournment, I just call an adjournment legally.
If you need me to, yeah, I'll second it or.